Well, I have 5:30, so I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that we join in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a quorum. I don't know, Neil and Robert, if you heard, but Ace's computer decided to update, so he'll be joining us momentarily. The next item we have is approval of the minutes from May 5, 2020. Does anybody have any comments, corrections? I had a couple that I mentioned to Robert, and he's going to correct them. I asked him to insert on page 3, where I spoke at 7:45. He's got the header over there, 7:45. I asked him to insert in the second line. You have to look at the rights that the word "go" along with the land. And then where Ace was speaking at 8:12, the last sentence of the first paragraph, whether you get a nay vote or a nay vote, he's going to change that to yay or nay. And then we don't know, and we need Ace's help. We don't know what he said in the second paragraph, first sentence. Robert said he listened to the tape a couple of times and could not figure out what it said. So when Ace chimes in, we can get that corrected. And I also asked Robert, I said, it doesn't say it's minutes, but he's got it in the footer on every page. And I did not notice that, so. I guess what we'll do is we'll postpone approving until Ace chimes in, and then we'll go back and approve them as corrected, if that's okay with everybody. So keep moving on. Next item of business is under new business agenda item A, to review and discuss a proposed text amendment to section 155.7 and section A.3. Adds new section 155.7.26 sidewalk cafe, amends table of uses to allow sidewalk cafe as a conditional use in C2 district, and adds new definition for sidewalk cafe in section A.3. And we'll hear from John.
Chairman Smith and members of the Board of Planning Board, this particular text amendment is going to apply to the C2 zoning districts. There are 2 C zoning districts in the town of Rachel Beach. One is at the Mercer's Pier area, Salisbury Street. That is all C2. The other C2 is the Oceanic area. It looks like this would only apply to this area here for standard restaurants. So we did receive an application on March the 5th, 2020 for a text amendment application to amend 155.7 and to add 155.726 and then a section 155.6.4, the table of uses, to add the sidewalk cafe as additional use in the C2 district. The petitioner has appointed architect John Rees to serve as authorized agent. He's going to speak on behalf of this text amendment application after I go over the text amendment and the CUP. This section 155.726 sidewalk cafe will be in the C2 commercial district, and it's going to be allowed, if it is allowed as a conditional use, with supplemental regulations in this district with the table of permitted conditional uses set forth in 155.6.4. It's going to add that new section for the sidewalk cafe. It's going to amend the table of uses to allow sidewalk cafes in the C2. And then we have a definition of what a sidewalk cafe is in section A3. And you see under the table of permitted uses, 155.64, This is where we added that CS under the C2 district. The town of Wrightsville Beach does not currently have a provision for the seating on public sidewalks or encroachments of seating on town property. This would, if it is approved, it would allow it through a conditional use permit. If there's any concerns about the alcohol on public property, we do have an ordinance that says you can't do that, but we think this ordinance here would supersede that ordinance if this goes through. You see the amendment of definition. We do have definitions for restaurants. We have a standard restaurant, a carry-out restaurant, and a fast food. So this will add another one for sidewalk cafes there, for public dining placed on public sidewalks. This was advertised in the Star News. We did put it on our website, and when we get to the CUP, we also posted the site there. So in the text amendment, we have the planning board statement of consistency. We have the application and plans and applicable ordinances that go along with this text amendment. Do you have any questions on this text amendment, or should I go into CUP, or what would you would like?
I just have one question. Neil, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
I didn't have a question about the
Okay.
amendment.
Anybody else have any questions?
So when you say it supersedes, it's saying that alcohol will be allowed
Yes.
to be served?
It will,
Okay.
yes. And I'll move into the CUP if that's okay. And on the, let's go over on this section where it talks about the sidewalk cafe in 155.726. You see that in the back of the supplemental regulations. I just kind of wanted to go over that too. Talks about, does everybody have that? The second to the last page, or 2 pages from the end in the amendment there. There you go. There where it highlighted add section. This is the actual ordinance here. I'll go over it briefly and to describe this. And then if you see under A, it's for all buildings adjacent to an encroachment to a clear path. And it talks about the path of travel must be free of obstructions for the entire length of encroachment. Encroachment shall not involve permanent alterations to public space. So we covered ourselves pretty good here in the town as far as removing objects and things like that. We can give a 24-hour notice, and then we can have all that, anything removed from that area. And then you see under C at 10 o'clock, all these tables and chairs, platforms has to be removed. So at 10 o'clock every night, all that stuff has to be removed. And then it's going to be reopened to the public. And then if they choose to, have breakfast there, it can open up at 7 o'clock in the morning under C there. Under D, sidewalk encroachments for standard restaurants located to a public sidewalk. There's supposed to be 5 feet of area shall remain open on the sides adjacent to approved encroachments. E gets into the alcohol approved encroachment areas. So the ABC permit would kind of rule there. Under 1, the adjacent standard restaurants shall be authorized, permitted, and this is talking about the ABC rules here under 1. The encroachment 2, again, is talking about the ABC permit. And then under 3, it talks about the premises of the encroachment shall be clearly marked out there. Signs shall be posted for this area. And then number 5, it talks about violating any of the laws and ordinances there about, again, alcohol. And you see the on the next page, the uses there where it's the CS. And then under add item definitions restaurant, you see this, everything in the beginning there is existing. So we added sidewalk cafe there. That's the new part there. And I'll go ahead and get into the CUP because I think they both kind of go together. And then we'll let John come up and have his presentation. So now, Chairman Smith and board members, we're going into the conditional use permit promise of the permit. Again, it applies to the C2 zoning district. So we got this conditional use permit for the Shark Bar to operate a sidewalk cafe. Proposed conditional use permit, the existing restaurant proposes adding seating for the plan. And you can see here, this is some of the seats here. Robert, if we can go to the one that's, okay, let's leave it right there. This is potentially what this could be looked like. You would have 6 foot 9.5 inches here, 6 foot 10 here. And there's another, in the packet, there was one that showed like 5 feet here or 4 feet something. So this is actual right here.
Yeah, I called Tony about it, because
Yeah.
what happened is they, in your packet, they submitted an old plan,
Yes.
and that tree well grate and the 2 public benches are not going to be installed.
Right.
So the old plan kind of makes it look like there's only 4.5 feet, but this is correct because the benches in that tree got cut out of the budget.
Yes. So the proposed conditional use would allow seating in front of a standard restaurant. It has to be a standard restaurant in C2 only. Got to have that 5 foot clearance. And you see some of the department comments. And under the fire department's, the chief comments, I had to actually call and talk to Chief House about it and to try to understand what he was talking about. Basically, the chief does not support this text amendment for our cafes, outside seating. He said he has issues with egress, the crowds of people and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Public Works started, they got into the outside seating about the total occupancy of the business and parking. I don't think there's going to be any issue with the grease trap, fire sprinkler requirements. It's outside, the inside of the building, I think, is sprinkled. So, and then the only thing I would say is that typically when you add seating, you have to add more parking. So I did talk to the architect to say they're either going to have to reduce seating inside to add the outside seating, or they're going to have to go to the Board of Aldermen and ask for a parking exception. I'm not sure which way they're going to do that now. So this would require, let's say if they're adding these seats, it would require 4 more parking spaces. Well, we know that they don't have parking spaces there. There's not any except public parking. So, so they'll have that option either to remove the seating inside or ask for a parking section through the Board of Aldermen. And then planning and inspection staff, we got into looking at about the alcohol. We think that would probably be okay. And we talked about some of the, what about happens when participants leave the area with alcohol? That would be an ABC issue. We talked about maybe when individuals are here, is it truly going to be that tight to the wall? If I'm sitting here, am I going to be putting my legs out here? We just started thinking about some of those things that may or may not happen there. Then we talked about that, we just completed this project. It looks starting to look really good. Mm-hmm. The only thing that could happen maybe is a stained sidewalk is the only thing, food or drinks or whatever. And then the police department had no concerns as long as they're in compliance with ABC rules and hours of operation. And then staff recommending conditions there are A through D. We talked about no outside music. The applicant must comply with all town ordinances, paying all the necessary state and local permits. And then if they receive 2 citations then for noise, then the board could look at their CUP and revoke it. This was advertised in the Star News. We advertised on our website. The site was posted and adjacent property owner letters were sent out for the conditional use permit. So I have this submitted to you. If you got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
I don't know if this is a question for you or not. Going to the seat, you said they would have to remove 4 seats inside
No, exactly. In other words,
to
they're,
accommodate the 4 out.
the
inside.
question is how do they do that? So they have an option, either reduce seating inside or go to the board. The planning board doesn't hear a parking exception, it's Board of
Right.
Aldermen. So that
Right.
would be their options of that, yes.
Is this something they could say, well, in the summer, we'll get rid of 4 seats upstairs?
Well, they have to do
And
it. The question
Then
is,
in the winter, put the seats outside away and then go back up 4 upstairs?
well, and the biggest issue with that is going to be policing it.
Yeah.
Who's policing it? First of all, there's no parking there,
Yeah.
so, so that's just one thought. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
And with the outdoor seating, the cafe seating, would it be allowable for people just to sit out there and have drinks, or would you have to order food?
That's, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. And maybe when John gets up, he can answer that, yeah.
Just, go ahead. I was just say, if there's, and I don't know how the process is, but if they are given a conditional use permit, and let's say they sell that restaurant to someone else, does that conditional use permit transfer?
Yeah, it stays with the property. The conditional use permit stays with the property no matter what.
Okay.
So it doesn't change at all.
Jim?
Neil has a question.
Yeah, I have a set of questions, and as I look through them, I think they're mostly to you, Tony, and maybe experience around the table, and not for the applicant. So if I could go through those, is that proper to do now? Or
Sure.
wait till we hear from the applicant?
No.
Yeah, if they're for Tony, yeah.
I mean, if it's from me, yeah, go ahead and try to handle it.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I guess number one, we don't have a space like this exactly anywhere else in town, and therefore that's why it's coming forward. But if I think about similar spaces, there's those picnic tables between Casa del Mar and Vito's. There's Loggerheads. I'm thinking more outdoor space, and Jerry Allen's outdoor space. And of course, I believe all three of those are actually examples on the private property, not on town property. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's not a sidewalk either. Those are just alleys, private alleys.
Okay. Okay, but if I look at those three as examples, I think they're extreme examples, not so much Vito's, but the other two, of stench and dirt on a regular basis. So unless a power washer gets through there, which it does not very often, from my view, they smell and they look terrible. So I think there's a real flag there when it comes to cleanliness around the space. And are there any existing ordinances with regard to merchants and cleanliness on the space proximate to their entryways or how they conduct their business?
You know, there's not, but that's one of the things that the planning board could recommend. They could recommend to the Board of Aldermen if you choose to move it forward. That's one of the things you could put on there. But then again, it's the enforcement of it, of that ordinance to make sure they're clean in it. But that's something as a planning board, y'all could put as a condition on there.
Yeah. I'll come back to the issue of enforcement because I know that's come up a few other times in previous sessions. Smoking. Would this, given that it's the town property, being given over to the applicant for use, would smoking be permitted in that area? And if not, then people who come out of restaurants and bars oftentimes just linger at the doorway or proximate to all that space and smoke. So I'm just wondering if there's any control the town has existing in any ordinances around smoking, or are there state ordinances that prevail there?
I know there are some local ordinances on that. I'm just not sure. Again, it would be the enforcement of it. I think maybe the planning board could recommend a recommendation that there would be no smoking there. But again, it's who's going to enforce it. You know, as soon as somebody comes out of a restaurant, they could light up. I don't know. So it'd be an enforcement issue.
You mentioned people sitting in chairs or rearranging chairs or sticking their legs in space and things like that. And, you know, under not really crowded conditions, it's probably not an issue. But I think in terms of, especially experiences I've had downtown Wilmington, New York, where there's lots of these types of situations, and dogs are, you know, often quite frequent and sitting about and underfoot, oftentimes out in the outdoor space. And I would say based on that seating arrangement, I don't see where a dog would fit except out on the other side of the barrier, so to speak. So, and the other question relative to that, is there a real barrier? I've seen very, you know, hard barriers that can be put up and then temporarily moved back into the building at night. As you're saying, things have to get put away. So the question is really twofold. Is there a hard barrier possibility, given that space size, that would really delineate the space and keep everything inside of it, and including, hey, dogs, I guess?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good question for John. Maybe there is something that's very lightweight that could be put there, maybe. But it's a good question about the animals too, so.
As far as sound is concerned, I heard you say no outside music, but I've personally walked down to the Palm Room at night and asked them to turn it down, including close those flappy windows that they have, which just basically, it's inside sound blowing out the windows. So I think maybe we want to be more crisp about, for them to be on the right side of things, not to be emanating any kind of sounds, whether they're not necessarily from outdoor speakers, but any other way through the windows. I mean, Palm Room's a whole other kettle of fish, but does the town have intentions of putting trash cans in that space at all? And the issue then becomes, does that crowd that space for the pathway? And or do those also become trash cans used by the merchant? And you also mentioned 2 citations, and I think you were specific to noise. And I would say this comes back to the enforcement issue. There's a whole range of enforceable things here. Why would 2 citations have to be, if I heard you correctly, just pinpointed to sound or music, when in fact it could be for, you know, the creeping of the space, the dirtiness of the space, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I think we have one chance to get this pretty right for the town and pretty workable for the merchant. And I don't think we should shortchange the requirements we think about setting in place, so that this becomes a model rather than something that we try to get away from, or if it gets handed over to a new owner, you know, we hope we can get them under control. I'm not assuming that the Shark Bar is a culprit in any way, but things do have a way of changing over time. So that was my range of questions, and I guess laced with a little bit of
I think they're good questions. I'll check on the trash carts to make sure. And typically, and Neil's brought up some great points. It's all about enforcement. As soon as it seems like as soon as the board or any board passes a CUP, then that falls on staff of complaints saying their trash can is overflowing. It smells, they haven't cleaned their concrete, the tables are still out there the next morning. What are we going to do? So it's a big enforcement area, and it seems like we passed these, but I don't think that it's hard to keep it monitored and enforce it is the biggest issue. I think some individuals do it better than others as far as keeping things clean and things like that. But you know, I'll check on the trash cans to make sure they're not there. But typically, if there's trash cans there, you know, hopefully they would maybe take their trash inside the servers. Maybe that's something we could put as a condition to keep it from overflowing outside. I think that would help probably. But we could put a lot of these conditions on there, I think, so.
Yeah, I was on the committee for Salisbury Street, and I know there's trash cans obviously in the plan, but I can't remember exactly where they are, but we have to remember there were trash cans there before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't imagine that a server is gonna walk across the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, but
we
what
can address
happens
that.
if it's near the Shark Bar is the question.
Yeah, and I can't remember.
I've got the plans. If I get a chance, I'll try to go look at them. I just
Yeah,
don't
it'd be
remember.
nice if we had. I
Yeah.
didn't bring them with me,
But when he was talking about, when Neil just mentioned the Tower 7, where the picnic tables are, and then those, and he's right about the stench. I walk, y'all know I walk it every day. It does. But my understanding, since that's private, you said those are private alleys. My understanding is the bars like Jimmy's, like Red Dog's, 22 North, it is their responsibility at the end of the night for their staff to clean up the cigarette butts, sweep and clean around the front of the bars. Is that correct?
They're supposed
That's
to,
what I'm-
but then it's an enforcement thing, and
Yeah.
nothing, we've all smelled that smell
Well,
around the
they
bars.
can't do anything about the
So,
smell, but I can honestly say that I have never walked past there that after the next day that the butts weren't swept up. You might see one they miss. They do sweep and clean up, but I mean, the stench is something that's, really bad.
I think there's good intentions always at the beginning, and then it kind of wanes sometimes
Yeah,
on keeping things clean, so.
and if the owners aren't there at the end of the night, when the staff cleans up.
Yeah.
But we also have to, I think, remember that this is a little bit of a nicer restaurant and it's not just a bar and.
Right.
uh,
My point was if you were to ask, somebody was asking, was there an ordinance? I know that there's a rule or so,
Right.
because I know the beach bars do it.
mhm,
And Sharps, like you said, is just a nicer restaurant.
right. I mean, I guess we can't assume that they would want to clean up their space because it would only help their restaurant,
Exactly.
but, you know.
Well, they do have a serious problem if it's a windy night.
Mhm.
You know how it is around here. We get a windy night and this stuff's just all over the place. Even though you try to clean it up, it blows away. So that's gonna be an issue.
But that's true at Tower 7. The paper plates, not Tower 7, the Vito's,
Vito's,
there's
yeah.
paper plates
He is-
laying up against the trees and in the bushes. And I
Yeah.
don't know how many are thrown out there, but then the wind catches them. So that's true with Vito's.
When we did Oceanic, when they went outdoors, we put a restriction on them that they had to actually have a barrier to catch a good portion of that.
Mhm.
And I would assume that these people would almost have the same thing, because I know that South Beach has its barrier.
But I don't know if you can completely close this off,
I
because
don't,
it's right beside the main door,
but
and
if you're putting, if you've got to have a sidewalk barrier, if that was a solid netting or something like that, that delineated between, because the servers are going to be moving back and forth, even though we've got 6 feet 9 inches, you got a server with a tray coming back and forth in this area. So the true area is not going to be 6 foot 9 inches.
good
The
point.
true area is going to be closer to 4 feet, because the server is not going to get too near the table with the tray. And help me, most of the trays they use are about 24 to 30 inches in diameter.
Yeah.
So,
That was kind of the question I had is, you're saying 6 foot 10 inches to the tables or 6 foot 9.5 inches, but that's excluding a barrier. If you go put a barrier, how much further is that barrier or
that's what I'm saying.
serving staff having to get through? And how much sidewalk are we really leaving for people going back and forth to the pier?
Well-
We went down
Fine.
there yesterday
Yeah.
and looked at it.
Yeah, I did too.
And I thought, maybe I wasn't thinking about a barrier, but didn't you say something about there was going to
He
be a
did
road
say
or
that
something?
they
And
were
the kid
gonna
said that
put
Louis said there was
something
going to
to
be a road or something.
set up.
I think when John gets up here, he
He'll
can,
explain
he can
that.
address that,
If
yes.
everybody's okay with it, why don't we hear from the
Okay.
petitioner and they might be able to answer a lot of these
Some of these
questions or what they're
questions.
gonna propose, and then we can
Sure.
take from there.
Mhm.
Is that good with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we really got it. Not very. We lost.
No, Ace is there. and Neil's
It's,
there. Yeah.
we lost.
So yeah, we're,
Reese. Well, I'm John Reese. I'm a restaurant architect and an airport architect. Those two things aren't very popular these days, and Brian joins us in case there's any questions. He's Mr. Giaquinto's attorney, and in case there's any LLC issues or something like that, he can, more technical stuff, he can speak to that.
could I stop you for 1 second? Neil and Ace, can you hear John okay? Can you hear everybody okay?
Yes, sorry, I had muted myself. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great. I'll try to speak up a little bit. So I'm just an architect. I design restaurants. I design them all over the country and airports and all kinds of places. And Alan's been my client for a while. And he bought Buddy's. He'd like to buy the Palm Room. But, obviously it could change hands, but he has the best intentions with the closing times and creating a really nice restaurant. Met the chef many times from Aspen, and he's just, it's really a quality restaurant. And he came up to me and asked me, prior to even ever seeing what you guys had planned, what you guys are doing down there, taking out the palm tree, expanding the sidewalk from what was then 5 feet to taking up the rest of the area of palm tree and paving it and kind of creating something like this. And then we got the plans from Tony, and we got the last plan from Tony, and came up with this idea. You guys came up with, staff took my amendment and really worked it to put in a lot of those safeguards. There's probably maybe some more you'd like to put in there, but they did a great job, and I really appreciate their help on that, because they really did a lot of work there. And we're 100% fine with everything they wrote in. As far as the design, that's all it is lines on paper. It was my attempt to get it on there, open up what we see around the country. It's the sidewalk al fresco dining. It closes at 10. Obviously, though, we can put some more cleaning aspects. Unlike a lot of those other restaurants, this restaurant is on concrete, or this would be on concrete. Concrete will not absorb the smells like a wood floor. And some of these other get beer and things and stuff on them, and it just will not come out, the smell. So I think with some consistent pressure washing, some of those smells and things can be eliminated. As far as a barrier goes, we have to be, has the velvet rope idea and things like that are the only thing that are really going to be applicable to this, because you have to be able to ingress and egress as a patron in a safe manner. And I don't know if we definitely can't take another 3 feet, which would be required to put a barrier up, because then you wouldn't have any sidewalk left. So I think it could be something like that, something like a velvet rope and things like that could definitely help out. When I think about this, I think about the benefits. What are the benefits? Well, Alan, what he did on that street, along with the new townhomes and what you've done to that street, it could be, it's now, not Buddy's anymore. It's kind of a restaurant row. If we could take over Palmer, if we could, or do something there. But I think it could be like a restaurant row, and it brings a lot of life to the street, day and night. Otherwise it's people, coming off the fishing dock and things like that. I think it would really enhance the street and become a little more of a community into the evening. And that's what I think is the benefit. If we can get it right, the benefit to that street, that would really enhance what you guys are doing there. Other than that, I don't have a good handle on regulations regarding smoking, whether or not smoking is prohibited outdoors like it is indoors. I think that can be, again, added to the CUP. If it's legal, I'm not sure if it's legal. Besides that, I think it's as long as the provisions are there, I think it's a great benefit for that street and the community. And that's about all I have. If there's any questions.
Do you know the answer to the first question I had about would they allow patrons to sit out there just for drinks and not require them to have dinner or snacks or appetizers?
I think it would just fall on the ABC. I think they would allow that. I think they would allow people to have mimosas and Bloody Marys and things like that. I don't think they would restrict the menu out there. I don't think there was nothing brought up to me about that. So people are eating and drinking. A lot of times it goes hands in hand during different times of the day. Evening, of course, everybody's probably ordering a meal. Yeah. Whereas 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's probably catch as catch can, So.
Your comment about the barrier, do you feel from an architect's standpoint and for code, the best thing would be you mentioned velvet ropes, which don't seem too attractive for beach setting. Yeah. But is that the only barrier you would see that would work?
Well, you have to be able to ingress and egress, and the people are sitting down off the sidewalk. And you need really 3 feet. That's what's legal to get someone safely in and out. And then there's handicap accessibility and
Yeah.
things like that. We're just dealing with limited space. So to be completely honest, I think no barrier or velvet ropes, I think are just,
It's still a barrier though.
uh,
It's still a barrier, one
Yeah.
way or the other.
yeah.
A velvet rope, a
I
mesh
guess,
string,
yeah,
there's still a barrier,
velvet,
there's still the same.
velvet rope, I guess you could unhook it and then sit down and then put it back. That's one thing.
But
where
they still
velvet
could
rope-
walk parallel to the tables and go
Yes.
out the open of the,
Yeah.
where the regular patrons go in and out of the restaurant.
Yeah, that's right. I've not heard any input from ABC whether or not they require a barrier yet either. Sometimes they do in different circumstances around the country.
Yeah, we're not the ABC board,
Yeah.
we're looking at the town's
Yeah.
output for it, so, basically, we've got to, now, if we got to have 3 feet from the table, so now we're at 3'9" of sidewalk.
Yes, and that's not, that won't work, but we could put a velvet rope, we'd have to
You
put.
still be 3'9".
No, you're talking about
Have
putting the
3
rope
feet.
right at the
I'm
table.
telling you, I would put it right at the.
He's gonna put it right at the table.
To let people.
You'd have to-
know that-
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna hook to the table.
Yeah, we'd have to do, it would be something along the edge of it, it could easily be unhooked and hooked, then, come up with,
Okay,
something like that, then they could get in and get
I
out.
see what you're saying, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood.
Yeah,
what
no,
you were
no,
saying.
yeah, so that's the only instance that I think a velvet rope,
But that really doesn't attach the problem, I don't think.
yeah, it's not
It would
really.
help, it would help everybody. I keep, in my mind, I keep comparing this to Circa Restaurant downtown in Wilmington. And they have tables on the sidewalk, obviously a very nice upscale restaurant. I wouldn't want to eat out there because there's so much pedestrian traffic
Yeah.
going by, you wouldn't have a peaceful meal, but every time I go down there, there's people sitting at it and the pedestrians go by, and the new police chief, did not make any comments about any problems with Wilmington sidewalk cafes, and, he was the police chief down there for years, so, because I had specifically asked Robert that today, if he had made any comments about downtown Wilmington, and he said no, so it does work. In heavily trafficked, downtown Wilmington on Friday, Saturday night is
I haven't been downtown, I don't even know.
probably
how
more
much
crowded,
room-
believe it or not, than this is gonna be at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, no, I think this would be a
So-
popular deal, I have no problem,
So it does work. I guess we just need to figure out, can we make it work here?
But I'd like to see the barrier be something nice, not just slap up a plastic chain, yellow chain, or, I'd like this, because all the expense going in down there to make everything look nice. I think one of the things would have to be something attractive and fit in if a barrier is gonna
Well,
be.
to me, the barrier is to separate the restaurant patrons
From
from
the
the
foot traffic.
sidewalk. And even more importantly, prevent those people from thinking if they see somebody, they can jump up with their drink and run off the premise.
right, exactly.
To
Yeah.
socialize, so, and I would envision there would be signs out there saying that they couldn't leave, because then you've got an open container, which
Well,
is
if you've got the,
against the law.
if you've got his velvet rope on each table, they're not gonna jump up and run because they're gonna
Yeah.
have some restraint.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but I see what you're saying, like, I just kind of think of it as a barrier, and I'm assuming if you did that, then the waitress might have to walk outside
Mhm.
to deliver the
Yeah,
food.
they would
Yeah.
have to walk and.
Which
one-
you see in like big cities and stuff all the
Yeah.
time.
It sounds like they've given it some thought, because
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't talked to Louis, but it sounds like he's already given
We
it some
spoke
thought.
with him at length yesterday.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I believe Neil has a question.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to come back to something that Jim was referencing, and that is, I guess, comments or non-comments from the current interim chief. And when I ask questions, I oftentimes try to consider, well, what perspective is that person going to share? What's their frame of reference? I would expect the police department to be mostly mindful of, the aggravated type of issues that happen at bars, and not necessarily the things that go awry at a nice restaurant. It kind of challenges two different worlds. There's the one world of fights, drunken, disorderly, and noise, and there's the other one of simply not following the rules. Yes, some noise, some dirt. It's more very local neighborhood involved. When I think of the people that live just north of the downtown sector and what they put up with, and the police don't seem to be able to deal with it because it's a very transient kind of a thing. So with all due respect to what the chief may have experienced and shared or not shared, I think our responsibility has to be to, my computer's about to want to go do a reboot, sorry. It's the planning board's responsibility to look after what that neighborhood also may feel about some of this, not just through the eyes of the police. It's a cautionary comment, I guess.
Now, you said the police chief wasn't opposed to it, but I thought he said.
No, fire chief.
Fire chief was.
Well,
Okay, so the
Well,
police chief is.
do you read that, Cheryl, as the fire department is opposed to?
No, I actually had a conversation with him. When I read the fire chief's comments, I met with him yesterday. I said, tell me what you mean by this. I was trying to get an idea of what he meant.
Right.
And basically, he said he is not for it, that he has issues with egress and the amount of people on the sidewalk was his concerns. So he verbally, and I met with him, he told me that.
So he is not in favor of it. Oh, okay, I did
He
not
said
read
that when he was up there.
Yeah.
I think we were kind of all hectic.
Okay.
I asked
Hey,
Chief,
House as well.
sorry.
No, this is
I think he
Chief
said.
I may have, Chief
Okay.
Rogers, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, no, you're good.
Yeah,
I'm
Chief
making
Rogers.
sure. That was coincidental.
When I emailed Chief Evangelist for specifics, he simply said that he's seen cities that allow the same, such as Savannah, and had not, there was not much of an issue, but it is restricted to specific areas of the city. That's all the clarification that he gave me when I asked.
Am I understanding there are only 2 areas on the beach that this could apply to?
Well, I don't know if it could or not. There's 2 areas that are zone C2.
Okay, that's okay.
This one is probably the only one it could, with the widest sidewalk probably. Could it happen it may, but it has to be a standard restaurant. It can't be a bar. So somebody could come and modify it at any time, I'm sure. Could ask other places, so.
Can I have a question? Is it intended, or I've only been to Sharport a few times, and I recall china and cloth napkins, if I'm not mistaken. Would it be the intention to continue with, real plates and silverware and cloth napkins outside, or would this go to paper products? Can you clue us in on that?
Well, their intention is to stay with the same serving is what they have, same utensils and everything. They're a higher end place. They're not going to serve paper cups or paper plates or anything like that. So
Because to what David was saying earlier about Oceanic, the discussion was about stuff blowing off the pier onto the beach. And it was right around the, live plastic free and the no smoking ban discussion. So I see similar issues if they, and I would say that we should consider clearly saying that there's no paper products out there, because they do have a way of blowing away and nobody can get up and run and chase them because they have this barrier or whatever. But my point would be it'll become a dirty mess.
I don't think, having eaten at Shark Bar and been in all of Alan's restaurants, I don't think would oppose that at all, using the same utensils. I think he'd have to be able to have a napkin, but beyond that, whatever he uses inside, he uses outside.
Can you tell us, I think that's a pretty good point. Do you know what he uses inside? Because, I might be leaning to a condition, I know we're at the text amendment, but a condition where there will be no paper products on the sidewalk provided by the restaurateur. You have heartburn over that?
I don't know exactly what he uses for napkins and extra napkins when
I
people
can
ask
answer
for
that.
that. Yeah.
I ate their lunch today, and it was a paper napkin.
Yeah.
But it was silverware and ceramic or whatever the plates were made out of. But I think that's a great, if we want to put that condition on there, I think that would be smart. They do use the cardboard straws, or disposable or biodegradable straws. But I think that'd be a great condition to put on there, no paper products outside. And I'm sure they could probably do that.
And right now, read this things that I have that we're talking about, restriction would be the no smoking, no paper products, and then there was the dogs, right?
Well, he was talking about the barrier for the dogs.
Yeah.
Neil was.
Oh,
Can you restrict smoking in outdoor seating areas?
I don't
And
know.
Well, what we can do is this, we can, I don't know the answer to that, but what we can do is we can make a recommendation till our attorney tells us, no, we can't do
Okay.
it. So before it goes to, if it goes to the Board of
Right.
Alderman, we can make those changes before that. If we cannot
Right.
restrict it, we'll say we encourage it or whatever, so.
But then you got people coming out of this palm room, just smoke a cigarette, and then you got them next door and.
Right, but they're in a restaurant seating area, so, I mean, I personally don't want to sit and
Me
smell
either.
someone's cigarette smoke,
Me,
you know?
Yeah, and I guess,
Next to me.
I think Tony's got the right answer. The
Yeah.
Town attorney will tell us if we can or can't, but sending a recommendation to the alderman is a smart idea if that's what we want to do. But I guess I'm looking at it as like, let's say they don't have any seating out there. There's probably going to be a patron that gets up and walks outside and smokes.
Right.
And you can't
Hard
tell
to regulate.
them to leave a public sidewalk.
but
So,
I've
but this
been
one
to
we could.
places all over that have outdoor seating, they still don't allow smoking outside. I've seen that.
Well, yeah, in that
Lot.
contained area, I
In that
would
contained
think,
area.
yeah.
Maybe we
I see that a
get
lot.
that done.
I don't know what the law is, but
Okay.
that would be something to
Yeah.
Hard
ask.
to ask.
because-
I do not know the answer to that,
Yeah.
but I do know the answer to the pets. That's very difficult coming from California. They will, if it's a help animal, can't ask them what it's for, and you have to let them in.
Yeah, we can't restrict service animals, and he's correct. So, but we can say no dogs allowed, or no animals allowed, but we
Except
can't
service
restrict
dogs.
service
So
animals.
no one can do that.
Yes,
And service dogs do not have to be labeled.
that's right.
And you don't ask.
Really?
I thought you had to have a
Mhm.
But they do have to be on the leash, all of them.
Well, maybe they can stipulate if they're already, they stay within that boundary of the.
Because we have people
We
on the
don't-
beach all the time with their emotional support dog,
Mhm.
which is a difference between emotional support dog and a service dog.
Yeah.
There's a
And there are
difference.
also emotional support cats.
So-
Your attorney will talk about that, but I
Yeah.
think
So my comment about dogs related to them kind of being parked out in the open space and not being, if they're accompanying people who are there sitting outside, they should be right there at their feet. My experience from traveling around the world for many years, dogs are our family members in many parts of the world, California, et cetera, but they're at your feet. But you'll also see them tied up to the phone pole. Okay, so it'll be tied up to that big green box. Or, out on a tether. And now that 6-foot space is no longer a path. It's a little bit of a test to get through it. The dog is doing whatever the dog wants to do, nuzzling up to other people at tables. I think it's in our interest to get this nailed down in the best way possible. So it's a great experience for the people inside in the seating and the people out on the sidewalk. And that we don't have to come in and adjudicate some changes to this down the road because we just didn't think it through, or we didn't want to impose something at a start and maybe evolve it later on into something less stringent.
So would y'all like to try to attack, or I shouldn't say attack, address the section 155.7.26 sidewalk cafe? Do we want to attempt to add to, modify?
Yes.
And I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit, but I'm going to say this in hopes that it might expedite our discussion, our decision. When I thought about this was, I figured it would probably be a little bit controversial. And I'm wondering if we send a recommendation to the board at the end of all this, that we give, if we move forward with a yes recommendation, we give them a couple of seasons and then come back. In other words, do a test. It would be unfair to them to say, okay, we're gonna let you do this for this season because this season is gonna be half over by the time they get to do it. But if we let them go through this season and next, for the year, and bring it back to the alderman to tweak it, to improve it, to pull it. I think if we put, there's already a lot of teeth in here where Tony could really shut them down or, you know.
If we found someone to enforce it.
Well, if they start getting a lot of complaints, and it's not just this crazy little, you know, if they get the 2 noise ordinance complaints, it's, Tony can have some teeth in this if he starts getting several complaints, especially from the new residents down there. That he could just say, no more outside seating.
Can you do a temporary fee?
This is what we can do, I think. If, so on our conditions, or we're gonna leave the text amendment just like it is and then go to the CUP and add conditions on the CUP. Is that what you're thinking? Okay, so the text amendment will stay the same if you choose that, and then we would add those conditions onto the CUP. And what was the question you were at, right before? I was thinking about something else hard. You started talking about.
He's talking kind of doing a temporary.
Oh, we
Test
can.
run.
This is what we could do. We can set a time period. We could do to May of 2022, where we'll review it again. I mean, you could put a time limit on the, this would be considered like an amendment to their conditional use existing one. So what we could do is put this put a date on there to say it's approved until May 20, and the Board of Aldermen would review it again. We could do that. So I think, I'm thinking we can, so.
And part of my thought on that is, hopefully it gives the restaurant operators some sense of, okay, if I don't behave here, I'm gonna lose this privilege. So hopefully they'll do the power washing and monitor everything and keep the trash picked up and everything so hopefully it would kind of self-discipline themselves to keep the privilege going. And you wouldn't have to be going down there all the time enforcing it.
I think that's a good idea.
That, Jim,
Case?
Yeah.
is that similar to what we were doing with Riceville Beach Elementary School and the Baptist Church? Because they kept coming back in front of us year after year after year, it seemed like.
We did put some numbers, dates on you're right, on variances, and we may have done a CUP. I know we did it on variances, so. Yeah.
One more comment, if I may. If we're going to.
You muted yourself.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
The text amendment calls for 5 feet of unobstructed sidewalk. And I'm looking at your survey and I see 6 foot 9.5 inches of unobstructed space. Is that correct, Mr. Reeves?
It is. It's 6'9" and 6'10". And that's not inclusive of the 6-inch curb, so it's actually 6 inches more than that. That's the sidewalk itself. And it's parallel park, so there's no encroachment at that street, unlike some streets with the bumpers hanging over.
I'm not going to make a mountain out of a molehill, but this text amendment allows for 5 feet of unobstructed area. It looks like could survive with 6 feet of unobstructed area. Is that accurate?
Well, no, I think
I think so, the old.
what we did with the, Ace, what we did with this text amendment, we looked, Robert was involved in it, and Tim too. We looked at Carolina Beach. And this basically says, even though that's something we need to look at because technically they could go into the encroachment about another foot or so. So the question is do we want to, instead of 5 feet, do we want to say 6 feet? Is that what you're saying, Ace?
Correct. If they don't need, if they're happy with 6 feet, then why don't we make it read 6?
You know, we just took that from Carolina Beach and that's up to the
I
planning
just
board.
think six, cutting it too close, they're not gonna have any room to get around with. I'd rather give them the 1.5 feet to have waitresses or servers to get through.
Or move.
So you're okay with the five-
Wall.
You're okay with the 5 feet?
I
Okay.
think so.
That's up to
I
the
mean, I
board.
don't know what everybody
I
else.
may not want to sit against the wall.
I think they need a little bit of
I think
leeway,
they
because
need a
I'm
little
afraid
leeway.
6 feet's
Yeah, I
gonna be
think-
tight.
I guess one way to look at it is as it's painted in the drawing there, is that standard spacing or is that just kind of tight?
Well, back to back, it's close to standard for tight spacing. And, when you're sitting back to back, so they're going to stretch closer to the door more with this one. I think at one point there was a hostess stand, but I think those seats will move 2, 3, 4 inches, maybe off the wall a couple of inches and maybe back and forth a couple of inches. And as long as we have a bunch of inches extra, we're in pretty good shape. Maybe you're approving the number of seats in this basic configuration. Because this is how many seats they're going for.
So to Ace's point, potentially 6 feet being, a big, larger space for you. What's your hard opinion on that?
Well, I was showing by saying that this is what we had left off. And they should put 5 feet. I figured these seats would fluctuate. So 6 feet, these seats will have still have plenty of inches to move around. So the 6 feet having a 6 feet minimum sidewalk doesn't affect anything.
Okay, because your seats are going back, your seats are parallel with the street. They're moving linear with the street, correct?
Yes, that's correct. They're not going to fluctuate out towards the street very, very much.
So all you're talking about is your table length.
Yes, and I've got a standard table length. I think it's 4 feet for side-by-side seating here. And so that's the standard table. That's the table that we set out to check it. And so they won't get a bigger table than what's shown on these drawings.
So what happens if somebody wants a table for 5 or a table for 6?
Just sit inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to
Parents
sit
said they sit
inside,
inside.
Yeah, these are not configured for that.
Yeah.
And that could be a restriction.
Well, you kind of said, are we approving the seating plan as laid out?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wanted to raise a point to, I think what Jim was saying about, hoping the merchant does a good job with the intention of being able to continue in this way. But I think there needs to be a clear point of guidance as to where the line is, as to, you need to meet this line. And if you want to exceed it, fantastic. And that would have to do with the space is the space. It's delineated, it's marked or something. That cleanliness is about, it's not dirty, it's not greasy, it's not stained, and it doesn't smell. It has to be cleaned every week is probably an overreach if it doesn't need it. But somebody who's going to enforce it has to have some guidance as to what's acceptable, and it can't vary from person to person or from neighbor to neighbor. So I think we should give some reasonable guidance as to what those expectations should be. Because we have lots of ordinances that are pretty malleable, like what is noise at night? Is it screaming? Is it howling? Is it loud crying, cursing? It's actually all of those depending on, how close it is to your eardrum.
They close at 10, right?
Yes.
Yes,
And
they do.
that's last serving was at 10, correct?
That's the outdoor serving or all serving?
Well, no, the outdoor seating has to be
Yeah,
finished.
yeah.
by-
Outdoor
Tables
seating
have
has
to
be
come in.
checked in, and
So they'd have to probably stop serving 9:30.
I would think.
And do you remember, Tony, when we did Shark, do they also have to close inside of 10 or stop
No,
serving?
they have another conditional use permit. It may be stop serving at 10 or 11, and they wrap up at 12, I think.
On the inside.
On the inside.
Wrap up at 12. Okay, I've got to pull the blind that cars reflected in that window. Sorry.
Is there anything about the existing operation that can be addressed, given this coming before us? Are there any other issues with regard to Shark Bar?
I've never, as long as, I mean, since the Shark Bar's been there, I haven't heard any complaints
Okay.
on the Shark Bar.
Do we have any kind of an ordinance as to when they can empty the empty bottles out in the trash, you know, that crash at 2 a.m. noise?
Yeah, we do, and their CUP may address that, their existing one. And let me look real quick.
Because there's a lot of new neighbors there now.
Yes, let's see. The applicant, a condition on their CUP says that the dumping of trash and bottles will not only occur between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. So that's already covered.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to proceed as Tony recommended? With the text amendment, do we want to, anyone want to make a motion? Oh, I need to ask too, is there anybody out in the public that wants to speak? I know Nancy Fay was on at one point.
She's mute. Okay, there's, well.
There are no other participants in the Zoom call, and there are no comments on the YouTube stream.
Great, okay, so then we can close the public portion of the meeting. So, what say you?
I like what you said.
I do too.
What did we say, the motion to put it, do a temporary conditional use permit, or do?
Well, on this
or-
right here,
That's what we're-
on this one right here, the text amendment, we wouldn't put that on there. We
Right,
would at
come on,
the,
okay,
on the
Yeah.
CUP. Yes.
So we would just need to make a motion to approve or deny the text amendment.
Yes.
I'll make a motion, Jim.
I'm sorry, Ace?
I'm happy to make a motion.
All right. Do we have a second? Karen,
Well,
second?
I haven't made my motion yet.
Oh.
I thought you just, sorry, Ace.
Make a motion that we approve the text amendment and new definitions as written with one change that we increase the 5 feet to 6 feet. And the reason for that is that this is a public-private relationship, and you are taking something away from the public from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. If they don't need that much, then give the public one more foot. You guys are welcome to vote that down and do another motion and keep it to 5 feet. I'm gonna make the motion where we make one amendment to 6 feet.
I'd just like to raise a question to that before there's a second, and that is, what does that do for any other space that comes along that doesn't have the same type of space, but this says 6 feet?
That means they couldn't do it. They'd have to come back for a text amendment. So,
That they have to leave 6 feet, not take 6 feet. Is that what you were saying?
yeah, they're gonna have to leave 6 feet of unobstructed area if this board passes that. Yes, 6 feet.
Okay, understood. Thank you. I'll second that.
Okay, so Neil, you're seconding the amendment as, for the,
The text.
the amendment as amended.
Yeah, with the change that was suggested by Ace.
Um,
Just-
So it'll be under D.
So D1 will read 6 feet. of
Yes.
unobstructed area.
That's correct, yes.
Is there any further discussion?
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, before everyone votes on this, I just make one quick comment. We do have a motion in a second. But, you know, this is an area that's under revitalization. I certainly support this type of sidewalk seating. I think that a public-private cooperation is a great thing in this town, and there are several examples of that. The ice cream stand has bench seating along the sidewalk. Wynn Plaza has a plethora of cement picnic tables with umbrellas for the trolley stop and patrons of those workshop and several other restaurants. That's in public space. And I think it meets the spirit of, you know, the charrette that we did in 2005. What I have seen in my experience is sometimes businesses will take a little more than they may need, which is why I would like to restrict this just by 1 foot. I mean, I don't want to make it a mountain over a molehill because I do support this type of sidewalk cafe in our town. I think it's a great thing. Neil had mentioned earlier, it's probably the only site with this type of relief on a sidewalk. If you look in front of most businesses, the sidewalk is too tiny to do anything. But as well, when you look at Red Dogs or Jimmy's late at night, they do use, as Mr. Reed said, not a velvet rope, but more like a seatbelt rope to try and keep their line that's out the door, you know, along the sidewalk. So there's tons of areas where, and Vito's is the same way at night. You know, Vito's has a line out the door and a big congregation of people. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I fully support it, but you know, I think there is a balance between businesses feeling entitled to public property, where they need to make sure they remember it is public, and there needs to be, you know, a proper sidewalk for families and children to walk by, and that's the reason I'm making that slight adjustment. But I fully support this concept. That's it.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, Chairman.
Anyone
For the roll call vote.
Yeah, Robert has asked me to do a roll call vote because of the virtual nature of the meeting. So we'll start with David.
David Culp votes aye.
Karen,
Karen King votes aye.
Leanne,
Leanne Joyner votes aye.
Cheryl,
Cheryl Cavallo votes aye.
Neil,
Neil Briggy votes aye.
Ace,
Thomas Kofer votes aye.
and Jim Smith votes aye. Thanks for reminding me about that, Robert. I forgot. Okay,
That
so
would do good.
we'll move on to the CUP. Tony, any need?
Well, I think as far as staff recommendations on page 2, you see we've got A, B, C, D. And then I think we've added no smoking. Okay, we've added no dogs. And we probably need to put, if dogs are in there, can we restrict them in that area? Is, you know, when we take it to the Board of Aldermen, that's where we're going to go with it.
You mean the service dogs?
Our service dogs to be in that same area. And let's see, one of the things and no paper plates,
Yeah.
No paper
products,
Paper
excuse me, no
products.
paper. We need to put that no paper products outside, I think.
Correct.
Okay,
Can I make one comment while you're on paper products, Tony?
yeah,
I just thought about, you know, glass. You know, a glass bottle of Bud Light or a nice glass of Cabernet wine glass, you know, that breaks out on the sidewalk and little kids are walking by bare feet the next day. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about glass out there? Is that?
I would think they would clean it up as soon as that was
Yeah.
something. I wouldn't think they'd leave that stuff out. I wouldn't think.
You use like
Plastic
plastic
wine glasses.
wine glasses.
Pint glasses or whatever.
I kind of sort of presumed that's what they would do anyway,
I'd
but
be
maybe I
okay with
shouldn't
that,
presume
Karen. That's a
that.
good idea. Heavy
I mean-
plastic, like a.
A nice one, yeah.
Heavy plastic beer glasses,
Right.
and they've got nice wine glasses that are
I
plastic.
have a, yeah.
There-
I mean, I have-
You know, it's a space that's going to be cleaned every night and tucked away. So I think we could tell them, you know, it's expected that they clean up any breakage immediately and at the end of the night, thoroughly clean the space of any breakage. But if we go down the path of plastic as a beach community, I think we're going against the wrong tide
This is
here.
a nice plastic,
Yeah, that's
but
gonna
it's
be
what I'm
reusable.
referring to.
No, but we can't stop people walking down the sidewalk dropping a bottle either, so
Yeah.
it's,
That's
it's
true,
an
that's
enforcement,
true.
I mean, I hate to make it harder on them. I think glasses, they just need to clean it up, and that'll be part of the conditionals that it's maintained not to have.
I mean, how many times have you sat outside and had a glass of wine? You know, I have. So
Yeah.
I just don't think,
It's a good point, but
You
it's
know.
hard to enforce.
yeah, I say.
What do you
go
think,
ahead and
Ace?
just-
Because if we do the hard plastic, then if it's not recyclable, then we're back to the environmental issue.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just wanted to bring that up because I just pulled a glass shard out of Banks's foot about 2 days ago and it made me think about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. It's a interesting hybrid scenario. I mean, you want to prevent litter and like David said, you know, with the Oceanic, we put some interesting restrictions on them for wind-blown debris. When Charlie Rangers came in front of us to put the little hot dog stand at Roberts, one of the conditions was going to be that they had their logo on their napkins so that anyone in the town would know it was their trash. You know, so I mean, again, yeah, it's just kind of a thought. I'm not trying to press it as no glass, but it's just it was a thought.
I think if we can really focus on the fact that they need to attend to it immediately if it's a problem as far as breakage, the burden is on the merchant to deal with it.
I don't disagree with that. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think they would. I mean, I don't know if anybody just would go right out there and clean up the glass.
Yeah.
Somebody
I
throws
think that's
something
fine.
with your little thing.
I have two things. I think Ace brought it up. In the A item, it talked about the citations were only for noise. Do we want to change that to any citation instead of just noise?
Like dirt, you mean like being not clean?
Can you issue a citation for that?
I
I'm
mean,
sure
what
you
other
can.
citations would there?
The biggest issues always with these was always noise,
Noise.
and that could be from emptying beer bottles, that can be loud patrons.
Let's say they encroached on the 6 foot and they got reported. Would that be considered a citation?
You know, the thing is we don't see it. That's like police. And when they hear noise, like Neil may report it and it's noise, but when the police officers get there,
It's
the
not.
complaints is gone.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that noise
That's-
ordinance has no
it's
teeth
different-
behind
it's
it
difficult.
whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's where, but I think
Yeah.
Ace said something about the fact that it just referenced noise, nothing else. So I didn't know if we wanted to change it to any citation or 2 citations in general.
we could just do that, 2 citations in general, maybe.
I just didn't know what other citations they would get.
If you're going to have them come back like the elementary school and the Baptist church agreement every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, then that probably is going to take care of. That's almost a bigger trip hazard than the.
That would be another one that we set a date on this when we do. The attorney may had a question back in the back.
Number one, point of where I don't know if I'm allowed to speak or not, but
One of the board members can call on you, so Cheryl call on him.
you have ABC citations, you have, Wrightsville Beach comes up and writes a citation. You could have any citation, city, federal, so forth,
Okay.
and do it that way, and then you encompass any type of a citation of crossing
Right.
over or serving outside of the area and stuff like that. That
That's
would be
true.
my only suggestion, is to change it any type of citation.
Citation, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we just,
Can you tell me who was just speaking?
my name is Brian Geschichter, sir. I'm with the firm of Oak Hill. Our firm represents Mr. G. Clinton.
The last part again, I'm sorry.
my firm represents Mr. Giaquinto. I'm with
Okay,
Oakville.
thank you.
I appreciate you helping
No
us
problem.
with that. Yeah.
It's a suggestion of a way to reword it to encompass more.
Right.
It seems to me we have all these ordinances, and they should all have equal weight in the good conduct of business and not just be noise.
Right. And then, go ahead.
Well, do I hear the group saying that we want to reword that and not restrict it to just noise?
Right.
Yeah.
We'll say 2 citations there and it'll,
Okay,
and I may put some language as far as state, local, or federal or something like that is what I'll put.
Encompass all of it. And the only thing I was, we talked about the table, and even though it shows it on the graph, that the tables only have 4, do we want to stipulate that in the conditional use permit, that there'd be no more than 4 at a table?
I think we've got that covered in the 6 feet.
well, I was gonna recommend, they do the seating as the plan shows.
Okay.
We'll reference agenda item B, page 2 as what they presented to us maybe, or that,
Okay, okay.
this is the part of the CUP, so.
Is that one good with everybody?
Mhm.
We're basically gonna approve it for the seating plan?
Yeah.
Neil's giving me a thumbs up.
Mhm. Yes.
Hey, sir, are you eating dinner?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they conform to the 6 feet of public space and they want to change their table arrangement, that doesn't bother me.
How about
I'm
quantity?
at the pleasure of the board with that.
How about quantity of seating?
Doesn't really bother me either. That's just me.
It's easier to enforce it by when you look at a plan as far as staff. When we go there, we see what was presented to us tonight. And it's easier to say, okay, this is what you presented to us. Now you've got a 10-foot table out there and remove it or whatever. So
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
not.
More enforceable.
In my experience, people start to consolidate chairs into arrangements they like when it's not hard packed with people. And you get all sorts of configurations. And then you get the wait staff coming around the outside to serve people. So it has a way of morphing into something other than what was brought to the board.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I think that's fair. And that's the purpose of, it's a partnership between the public and the private, and restaurateur, can't privatize the whole sidewalk. So I'll lean on your guidance there, Tony.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, we've addressed the noise and we already have in there no music. They mentioned, now I'm not gonna be able to find the word, but you mentioned stanchions?
Oh, yeah. Oh, so-
What-
The velvet ropes.
Is that's your definition of a stanchion?
You used the word stanchion earlier. That's why I was looking
It
at
is
it being a
written
fence
somewhere.
outside, not
You're right.
to the tables.
Well, I guess the point I'm getting to is I don't like the velvet ropes. I don't like the barricade, the stanchions. I think we beat that one to death, but I hate to bring this up, but they've got like medallions on the sidewalks downtown where these restaurants have to keep their tables back, to a certain distance. I don't know if we could put, even if they're just temporary decals on the sidewalk, but something tasteful, and maybe it's the decal of the Wrightsville Beach logo, so that when their wait staff sets these tables up every morning, John sets it up in the morning and he's new and he knows he's got to set this stuff up behind these medallions in the sidewalk. Not painter's tape, not a bunch of crap stuck out there, but some nice decals that might be the Wrightsville Beach logo that would blend in with the decor and eventually would be removable if they take them out in the wintertime.
Or it could be a shark, they could make, this is their
Oh,
restaurant, it could be a
sharks would
shark's
be cool,
car,
yeah.
decal.
But we'd have to get approval from, of course, the board. If they, but I'd like to send that recommendation to them,
Okay.
that there be
Stanchions in
some,
the text amendments where the stanchions is mentioned.
there you go, yeah, but his definition of stanchions is
Yeah.
velvet rope, like we're going to the movies.
I think the ones with the car seat would probably fit the,
Mhm.
Yeah,
I really prefer
none?
nothing until because there's nothing that's gonna look. I don't know what Louis was talking about, and I'm sure they got a good sense of design, I just don't envision it, something that's gonna, I do envision those beautiful tables sitting outside.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if we can improve upon it with a velvet rope and something like that, whereas the implied sticker or something on the ground might be a better solution.
I was going with the barrier because of paper products, but once you came with the loss of paper
Glass and
products,
just-
I have no
Oh,
problem.
Ground, yeah.
I have no problem with not having
Got
anything there.
And
I think-
and the restaurant operator can tell their patrons, you have to stay behind these medallions on the
Yeah, that would make sense.
sidewalk.
Yeah, I think this comes back to what you're saying earlier, Jim, that, you know, the merchant at some point has to embrace how they manage this area. And if we give the guidance, here's your 2 dots to work with. If it gets out of control, they're going to realize it. They're going to start putting up stanchions if that's the only way they can control what's happening in that space. If we have to put stanchions there, it's probably because it's come to, you know, a real impasse with regard to them acknowledging the problem, if a problem happens. So seems fine to put that guidance on the ground there for them to work with.
So we're good with that one? Good. And then what did y'all want to do about the cleanliness? I know that some of the merchants downtown attempt to pressure wash from time to time. The biggest soil on sidewalks is chewing gum by far. And, but do we want to put some specific,
See, that's the big thing about, what do you mean by clean?
yeah,
I mean, and sometimes the pressure washing, we already had our sidewalks damaged with pressure washing already.
right,
And the wrong person can cut through the concrete with pressure washing. I think it's good in some areas, but you get too much pressure and it takes the concrete off of it.
Yeah.
I think we just say it needs to be clean. I don't know how you describe that. I mean, is it pressure washing once a month, once a week? I mean, I don't know.
It would probably vary with the number of people that showed up at
Yeah.
various times. We had a lot of.
But if we do a lot of pressure washing, it's going to change
Yeah.
that. You're going to see a difference between the sidewalk and the eating area. It's going to cut into it. So I don't, I think we just say clean and.
So there are advantages.
That's a really slippery slope, because from 10 PM to 7 AM all through night, it's 100% public activity that
Yeah.
restaurateur can't control. And I mean, any entrepreneur that's going to risk their reputation and livelihood under this model, the Shark Bar model, which is like was introduced by Tower 7 and Mellow Mushroom and South Beach Grill, but their priority is quality of food. They're going to want their patrons to have a pleasant dining experience. Now, I understand that if Shark Bar fails or Shark Bar sells and a new owner comes along, this CUP follows business, not the person. That the CUP and this ability to conduct business on the sidewalk follows, Shark Bar. So we don't know who would come next. But at the same time, it's from 10 PM to 7 AM. There's a lot of action out there, and who knows? That's a tricky one.
So perhaps, sorry,
Go ahead.
David, go ahead.
With the restrictions that we're putting on this, with the time frame that this can be reviewed, it kind of helps us that if it changes hands, if we keep having a 2 or 2.5 year time frame on it, then that helps us out, because
Yeah.
if it's reviewable, it changes. It won't be long before the next man comes up and he knows that it disappears at this time. So I think that right there is going to help.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that we're talking about.
So then a simple guidance could be that the expectation is that the space, when it's dismantled every night, is swept clean, and spilled food and things are cleared or washed. It's not saying power wash. It's not saying power wash every day or every night. It's saying deal with the issue when it happens as best you can, so that you don't have to get into something more onerous every month or every week. But the expectation is that it doesn't go unattended to night after night. Because then you do wind up with loggerheads They can pressure wash all they want. They can't undo, the neglect that's been done there all these years.
I'm good with that. Is everybody good with that one?
I mean, they wash the floors or they sweep the floors inside a restaurant every night usually.
Yeah, we don't have control of it. I only have one other comment, and then we need to go around the room and make sure we've covered everything. We're going to allow them to have umbrellas.
I would say no. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
depicted it's not depicted here. That's a good question, because the next thing you know, I don't see how they can put an umbrella against
A wall.
that wall there. And
I was wondering about awning,
they have little awnings,
There's a little awning,
some,
but-
some little bit of
like a
awnings.
retractable awning for the sun, but I didn't know.
I mean, they didn't show it, so.
There are half umbrellas, so they can have one that works with the wall.
I don't know the answer. to that.
I'm sorry, Neil, what did you say?
They
I
have
said
half
there-
umbrellas.
There's half umbrellas.
So I learned something.
They're all along the riverfront in Chicago.
Wow.
Well, maybe not all along, but yeah, they're there.
I probably shouldn't have even brought it up. should I guess because, man, they're gonna have a song, but, I think most of their seating is gonna be evening seating, but, the other issue is the wind.
Right.
I mean, they become projectiles.
I think we deal with that as it comes, because you would have to get a permit for that, wouldn't you? I would think.
Anything that's mounted on the building, we would.
Yeah.
But not outside like that, they wouldn't, but, my only comment is that they're not showing those on here.
Right.
And sometimes those things can pop up, so if they're not showing them,
So maybe we
They'll have
better
to
put
bring it
on
back.
there,
well, I don't know.
The only discussion I've had with Alan, and this was way back when, was this is going back before I even saw the renovation of the street, was something to the fact that possibly doing a wall, building mounted awning, but that's not been discussed in a while.
Would that have to come before?
I would
the
say
town?
that needs to come back if they're gonna do something like that. That's,
Okay.
that's a structure over the town property.
Yeah,
And there are some building code
there are,
issues, heights and stuff like that.
there's,
So I don't think we go there on this one, so.
Okay.
But is everybody comfortable in putting a comment in your condition in here, no umbrellas?
Yes.
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 Mhm.
Everybody good with that one?
Yeah.
Yep. That majority says
I
yes.
can't hear Neil.
He said yes.
No, he's
No,
talking.
no, sorry.
Oh.
I was on mute. I said, does that preclude them from coming back in the future with a plan that addresses concerns about umbrellas?
No, they could always, anybody could come back and amend their CUP.
Okay, so we're just saying, you haven't shown enough for us to say it's fine.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
His mouth was moving, but I couldn't hear.
Jim, hey, Jim, man,
umbrellas are very hard to move in and move out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another thing that takes a lot of room.
Jim, you might as well put, if you're gonna put no umbrellas, no mobile heating units.
Everybody good with that one?
Mhm.
You're writing all this down, right, Tony?
Well, since we're talking about appointing the outdoor space with stuff, would a serving not a serving a serving stand be acceptable? Typically there's a wait stand for them to,
I know they had one
They had
before,
that.
probably without permission, and they have had one before, Neil. I don't know if we need to go there with it or not. I don't know if it was an issue before. I mean, I don't know.
well, I suppose that's more of the host stand, and I'm thinking more the type of thing that has liquids and china and, service things.
It's not in the
Um,
plan, though.
Yeah, it's not in the plan, but so we're basically saying what the plan is right now is all it's gonna be. Yeah.
With the exception of the host stand, which I thought was allowed, You know,
I don't know if it was ever shown on a CUP. It's on public property.
I didn't show it because that's what I was not going for approval for. But I don't know what, if they want somebody staying out there and, you know, like with it, like this. I don't anticipate there's no room. They would end up losing a table if they wanted to put any kind of makeup. That's really frowned upon by the health department.
So it looks like no smoking, dogs must be contained in that area, no paper products, no umbrellas, no heating units, and no serving trays, or do we even have to put that in there?
No, I think there's enough room,
Sir,
service
okay.
trays. But we talked about the decals on the
Decals.
delineating the concrete. Also, we've got to come up with the date for the CUP review, which
Well, I
would
wrote
be
down
May
5/1.
2022,
I
maybe.
said 5/1/22.
Yeah, so we'll review that
I
again.
think that's a good.
Yeah, I think that's a good
The
idea.
ex-
So
the-
that'd be kind of right before the beginning of the.
Yeah.
peak
Before
season.
Memorial
So it
Day.
gives us time to look at it, so.
Use that lot.
Helicopter again.
Close at 10 PM and the 2 citations
Yes.
and the 6 foot. Yep. Well, that was the other, that was the text.
So, do we have a motion to, oh golly, approve the CUP as
Amended.
amended?
Amended.
I'll make that motion,
I'll
if I
second.
can say that.
I'll second.
Okay, Robert, David made the motion, Leanne seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, so we'll take a vote, starting with David,
David Culp, aye.
Karen,
Karen King, aye.
Leanne Joyner, aye.
Cheryl Kabala, aye.
Neil,
Neil Briggy, aye.
Ace,
Thomas Kofer, aye.
and Jim Smith, aye.
Good luck, Shark Bar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good luck with it.
No, did you see state of,
He said
right,
that.
rightful beaches in the state of emergency?
Wow.
I just got that text for,
Something's happened, I don't know.
There were
Yeah,
just two military helicopters
Yeah.
just came over.
They fly here every evening.
I know there's-
Yeah, but they don't like go that way. They were going,
from Daryl Mills.
Yeah.
No,
oh, I
What
didn't
does
get
it
those.
say? Can you read it?
It's the,
They're great.
for immediate release, June 2nd, 2020, Tim Owens, Town Manager, Town of Wrightsville Beach, under curfew, June 2nd, 9 PM to 5 AM. So we
Okay.
gotta be done here at 7 o'clock. Town of Wrightsville Beach Mayor Daryl, Daryl Mills has declared a state of emergency separate and distinct from the COVID-19 pandemic. The town is now under a curfew that shall apply to the hours of 9 PM to 5 AM effective June 2nd, 2020, and remain in effect until rescinded. He's just continued what the county did.
Yeah.
It's exactly what the county's was.
now I've got to go round up my grandchildren. I got 3 18-year-olds running around here.
Somebody's phone is on the floor down there. It's been bothering me the whole meeting.
Where?
It's probably Tony's
Oh, I see it.
right down here.
Oh, good.
These are the most uncomfortable chairs I've ever seen.
Now, we not doing the other?
Yeah,
Yeah, he was outside working.
Oh, you're kidding. Well, I'm thinking, what is Karen over there worried about? What?
But
7 o'clock.
it's after
We still got 2
7.
I get it
Yeah.
now.
We got a 9 o'clock.
Well, I'm thinking they weren't here. They
And
weren't
I can go
coming.
eat.
I'm with you. What's
I
that?
work all
They,
day,
y'all, they
and
must have
I came
canceled
straight
it.
here, and I
So,
need
no,
to-
they're still coming in.
yeah, and then we've got that,
Yeah, we got a lot, yeah, I mean,
step-
it's,
I get it
we
now.
gotta keep the ball rolling.
What if there's a way we
Oh, I
can,
keep hitting the Velcro. There's Velcro and it keeps picking my sweater. We'll see the tail.
would we
Or you got
all
Velcro.
be
Right
okay
here,
if
she
they?
can-
I don't have Velcro.
So can we move forward, or?
Yeah. I didn't realize, I thought they weren't here. I
They're
figured
here.
they must have
They were-
bagged.
no, they were outside.
Oh my God, here we go again.
Who are we looking for?
This is gonna
We're
be-
waiting on the
Attorney
second group.
Nichols.
this is gonna be easy.
Probably
Oh,
Sam.
I gotta go.
Leanne, you gonna be able to get home by 9 o'clock?
Huh?
You gonna be able to get home by 9 o'clock?
I hope so. I think so.
It's a short
Oh, my
skateboard
God.
ride.
I want my comfortable chair back in the chambers.
Sorry, guys, Tony's trying to keep everybody separated. We're trying to move this along because we've got to get home by 9.
We gotta eat for that.
Why, do y'all know why the state of emergency was issued in Wrightsville Beach?
The county had one.
Same as county.
Okay, do y'all know why? Did
Yeah,
somebody-
Daryl's trying to make this meeting shorter than the last one.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's- I don't think that's gonna happen.
You should have put for 8 PM.
No kidding.
Text him and tell him we want.
Well, I hope the restaurants don't start running people out too early.
I know, I'm supposed to.
Hey, Jim,
Yes,
on
sir.
on that note, I'm seeing quite a few agenda items for tonight, and this next item is gonna
Yeah,
take up a lot of time. What do we do? What do we do if we don't get through it all? I mean, in a timely order.
I think we have to call the meeting. I mean, we're under direct orders to be out of here by 9.
Yeah, okay.
To be at home at 9, and some folks have to get food.
I gotta go to the camera.
Well, I'm gonna ask Tony when we all, and then, you guys. I guess everybody knows we're under a state of emergency. We gotta be home by 9. So, Matt, can you expedite your
Yes, sir,
presentation?
absolutely. We're gonna be
And
very
basically, if the board's okay with it, just highlight the specific changes that you've made from
Yes,
last
sir.
time.
Absolutely.
Is that good with everybody?
Yeah, I think we do.
Yeah, I think, we beat a lot of stuff to death. If everybody's okay with that, specifically highlight the changes from last week.
Yes, sir, and that we've got it kind of geared toward that.
Great.
I can begin whenever you'd like.
Well, I'll go to agenda item B.
Kind of like C, it would be considered C.
Agenda item C.
Yes.
Review and discuss a proposed text amendment to section 155.7 and section 8.3. And I'll just leave it at that. And Tony, is there any comments you want to make? or-
No, I think I'll make some comments. Definitely at the CUP. But one of the things here, and when Matt gets up here, one of the changes we did, and Matt will get up here to talk about some of the changes, but okay, under 155.7.28 Marina Restaurant, one of the changes there was under B, the major change there, it only applies to Atlantic coastal waterway. So it, instead of being CPAP, it would only be for this area here. So that's one major change there.
Wait for you, Tony, I'm sorry.
This is under the
What page?
well, it's just got a date on the page, 5/20/2020. It's Exhibit A, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A to the petition for ordinance text. That was one of the major changes there.
I was just paying back.
And when Matt gets up here, he'll go over his changes there on the text amendment. And then my only comments will probably be for the CUP or whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah, Matt, we're ready.
No, I was here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Matt Nichols. I'm here representing the applicant. Thank you very much for your time. I know we've had 2 previous hearings, so we'll keep this abbreviated. Going too fast, please let me know. We do have a presentation, and I'll highlight just some of the changes that we made since the last time you all reviewed this. We had a presentation. I think Robert was going to pull that up. And while he was doing that, for the text amendment, we kept the framework the same. If we're adding a Marina restaurant use to the ordinance. And as Tony mentioned, we tried to narrow this down even more. And the first main change is to the requirements for a qualifying marina. It would have to be a marina not only consisting of the 75 wet boat slips. We'll come back to these slides. I'll jump ahead to the text amendment. We're looking forward to showing you the changes that we've made to the design. I'll turn it over to Michael when that part comes, but just sort of fast forwarding to the text amendment part. Okay. B and C have, we tightened that up a little bit. So essentially what does that mean? On B, we've added the restriction that the qualifying marina must be adjacent to the intercoastal waterway. So for all practical purposes, that means that the only place you would see a marina restaurant would be at the Wrightsville Yacht Club, because it's the only 75 slip marina on the intercoastal waterway in Wrightsville Beach. We tightened up the dimensions to be not exceeding 31 feet in length and 120 feet in length. You'll see when we get to our actual design, we're slightly under that, but we just wanted to have a little bit of a cushion in case it was a foot or so over. But the dimensions that we're proposing on the project are 29 feet wide and 118 feet long.
Say that again, sorry.
The actual dimensions when we get to the project are 29 feet wide and 118 feet in length. The current boat slip is 35 feet by roughly 130 feet, but it's going into an existing slip. And those were the two major changes with the text amendment. And the other, nothing else has changed. And the one thing that you'll see is, we'll get to this with the actual project itself, but we took out the private component to it. What we're going to propose for the board's consideration is the first level, the restaurant portion of the proposed marina restaurant would be open to the public. And then the second level would be the amenity component for the Wrightsville Yacht Club. So we thought that was a good compromise. Listening to the board's concerns about things along those lines. So that would be a change. It's not going to be a purely private amenity. So with that said, I'm glad to answer any questions about the text amendment, and then we'll be glad to talk about the actual design.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
You changed B and C. What about E, the height?
We left the height at 40 feet for this reason, and you'll see when we get to our proposal. We are proposing it, really giving the board an alternative or an option for thoughts. We have a design that you'll see as a purely two-level vessel. It would be the restaurant on the bottom floor, the lounge on the second floor. That would put us at about 28.5 feet off of the water. So again, I think one thing to keep in mind is we're not measuring this from the land. So as you'll see from some of the renderings, it's going to appear lower than the 28-foot structure on land because it's sitting in the water. So the 28 feet would be measured from the water. We left it at 40 feet for the reason that what we would like to propose for consideration is a small conference area on the third floor toward the landward side of the vessel. And we've come up with some proposals for some limiting formula, a percentage of the, basically what we're proposing is roughly 20 by 24 feet. And we've got some renderings of that. But it would be, no, it's not outdoor deck anymore. There's not going to be any outdoor observation level. It's just a third level. If the board likes the way it looks, if that's acceptable, that's great. If not, we understand that. And our alternative design would be a purely two-level vessel. So to have that third level, we would have to have, it would be a little under 40 feet, but it would require more than the 28.
What would that be for? Conference room?
It would be a conference room. We're anticipating it would be roughly 12 seats up there, and it would be just sort of another space. And I think when we show you the renderings, you'll get an idea of what it looks like.
Could I interrupt for 1 second, please? I'm not sure where the microphones are placed, but it sounds like there's a lot of page turning and it totally blanks out the verbal.
I think that's me. Sorry, Neil.
Okay. You guys are the size of a postage stamp, so I can't tell where it's coming from. I'm seeing the CUP request thing up here. Thank you.
Why do you need a conference room?
It's just, it was just an idea. It's something that would provide an additional space up there. If the board had a lot of concern about that, we can understand that. We just wanted to give it as an option for consideration. But we understood the board's concerns. The third level didn't want like an outdoor area like a deck, or there was concerns, I think, about noise, potential litter. This would be an enclosed space. I think we're sort of showing it as sort of half enclosed, but whatever the board's thoughts were on that, we liked the idea of moving it toward the land, having a separate space up there, very small in proportion to the rest of the vessel. It's just something we would ask you all to consider, but if it's not something that, if it's something that causes you a lot of concern, we understand. I thought it was a pretty benign sort of compromise to the comparison to what was there.
If I could interrupt one more time, Karen, I think it's you.
Yeah. Well,
No, can you just move the microphone maybe? I'm not sure where it is. I have a question. Did you say that part of it is for public access?
Yes, sir. The entire bottom floor, the restaurant itself would be open to the public.
So what is the second floor? It's not a restaurant?
That would be the lounge, private area for the Wrightsville Yacht Club.
So how does that work with the public option?
Well, we're anticipating that it's really 66 seats total. So it is a, relatively speaking, a small restaurant. And I'm sure in the summer and probably most of the time it would be on per reservations. So it would be something where somebody makes a reservation. Again, it's just not that high of a turnover restaurant, and it's not a very big restaurant. So it would be available to whoever makes a reservation.
So how does that work with parking? Because your parking was based off your membership.
Well, it works the same way. You'll see we have an abundance of parking. We still think that a number of the people that are going to eat there are going to be the members, but we're not having it so you have to be a member to eat there. But you'll see that we do have more parking than we think we need. There's going to be a valet station that's shown in the rendering and also on the site plan. So we think there's more than sufficient parking to have adequate facilities to park the restaurant.
But that's based on your revised equation for how you calculate parking
That's
space
correct.
requirement, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that is correct. That's correct.
Any other questions for Matt?
Matt, I do have a question. Sorry, I was muted.
Yes, sir.
The public piece has nothing to do with the text amendment. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. I think to the extent we had any reference in there to private in our application, that's been removed. So I think the only reference to the word private in either of the applications is to the fact we have a private parking lot, a privately owned parking lot. But the idea of it being a completely private amenity is we've come up with the proposal to have sort of a mixture of private public, which we think would hopefully address some of the concerns that we heard last time.
And that's in the CUP, not necessarily this text amendment?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The text amendment does maintain the same requirement that a marina restaurant has to be operated in conjunction with a yacht club. And I think that's a safeguard. We thought about, is that necessary? But I like the idea because the restaurant there will be associated with the yacht club. It's not going to be somebody who just, you know, there's there's a connection there, and that's where the management of the yacht club and the oversight will be there.
Okay, thank you.
And then also tying in the amenity component on the second floor.
So you've indicated that that it's the same capacity to serve people from the last time we met with you, correct?
Yes, sir. The seating remains the same.
Seating remains the same. You've changed the option for it to allow non-members. But essentially, what precludes you from operating it as a private club if a public person can't simply get a reservation because it's all booked up? Or behind the curtain, it's de facto booked up for members only?
Well, we would be in violation of the conditional use permit, and we'd be in trouble with the town.
Well,
for sure. That's
Well,
not-
what's the transparency of that process? I mean, it seems a bit theatrical what I'm seeing here. I'm not trying to cast aspersions, but it's not clear to me how that system is really different.
Well, I guess I would disagree disrespectfully, because it's open to the public to make a reservation to come eat, but it's a limited seating restaurant. So if someone calls and can't get a reservation on a certain night, that's probably going to be the case in the summer on many nights. But it will be a reservation system. I don't know how else to explain it, but if there's no, we viewed it as a positive thing. If there was, for some reason, there was an instance where that was perceived not to be the case, then we would certainly be in violation of the conditional use permit, which would be a huge risk to the project and a problem for the whole development. So that certainly is not the intent, and nor will it be. The risk is too, there would be too much risk involved in trying to do it that way.
So if a restriction was placed that it was evaluated annually as to the amount of members being served to validate that, would that be an issue?
Well, if the town wants to get into that level of the operation of the restaurant, I don't know. I've never seen that level of town oversight in the operation of a restaurant. So
Well, the town does review performance against what was stipulated. They revisit it on periodic basis. We just passed one that way.
If you all had a reasonable criteria set up, I mean, we would certainly be willing to entertain it. And if it was reasonable, it wouldn't be a problem.
But you have 77 members and 66 seats. That would say like almost all 77 members would have to go eat on Friday night. There not be any seats. I don't think that would be a problem. I mean,
Well,
that
I
doesn't
mean,
bother me. I don't think that's.
yeah, I mean, I think the goal is to have a busy, economically
Yeah.
usable restaurant. So
I think what Neil's saying is, would they call to make a reservation? I would address this to Sam. When somebody is not a member call and make a reservation, they get a fair chance of getting in like a member would. That's what you're saying, Neil, or no? Am I reading you wrong?
I'll take the brunt of whatever emphasis came along with the way I said it. But basically, it could completely be a farce, or it could be, well intended. There's no way of knowing. I mean, this is the third time we're seeing this project.
well, we've tried our best to address the concerns that we've heard. We hope that the perception is that we've been making improvements. So if there's other suggestions, we're certainly open to listening to them, and further suggestions, we're more than happy to listen to those. And we've tried our best to address the concerns over the last couple hearings. We really do appreciate the board's time. I think it's been very beneficial when we go back and look at what we were proposing the first part of the first hearing. It's come down a lot in size.
Okay, so one of the key elements of this is you're remodeling the way you calculate parking spaces. And the statement was said, well, the town has kind of indicated they were considering that. I have seen nothing, no kind of a report or assessment of why that should happen in this specific case or in any other case. So I don't automatically buy into this parking change in the formula. And now what I'm hearing is you could theoretically have this capacity, which hasn't changed, filled with your members. I'm sorry, filled with non-members, plus your parking lot filled with members. So I just don't see, I don't see a control over this parking situation. It's just one aspect of it. Yes, you've downsized the top floor and you've put in a space for no particular stated reason. You just said it seemed like a good idea. So I'm feeling that this is just coming back, trying to keep a door open and trying to, you know, wear some of the opinions down or questions down to something. I'm just being straightforward.
Is CUP relevant, or is this relevant to what we're talking about now? This discussion on parking.
I think the discussion on parking is relevant to the CUP.
Yeah, which is,
Yeah.
and but we're talking.
We're on the text.
We're on the text,
Text,
yeah, yeah. This is a long time to be discussing this. That's to keep things going.
I'm sorry. to
Yeah, I'm
interrupt.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I may address that though, I would say for the parking standpoint, I definitely don't speak for the town. Based on our discussions with the town, our understanding was there was the idea of revisiting the ratio of parking requirements to wet slips. So, Mr. Briggy, you certainly could ask Mr. Wilson, because I'm not pulling that out of thin air. That was the discussions that we heard. So we incorporated that into our text amendment. And I would look at, if you look at the actual parking requirement for existing marina boatominiums now, right now it's one space for every one wet slip. However, it's one space for every 4 dry slips. And I think that's pretty telling because there's a lot of dry slips in the vicinity. And if, you know, you're having one, you only need one parking space for every 4 dry slips. So, and we're not proposing any change to that. What we're proposing is one parking space for every 2 wet slips, which is still twice the amount for that same amount of dry slips. So we think it's very reasonable. I know that Sam could speak to the fact that on any given day, there's an abundance of parking out there. There's parking that's just not being used. And we think that's inefficient. We hope that the board sees it the same way, but we think what we're proposing is very reasonable. And we also, you know, it's in our best interest to have a parking situation that's not a problem. Because if it's difficult to get a parking space, people aren't gonna enjoy the facility. So Sam thinks it can work at that ratio. Based on our discussions with the town, the 2-to-1 ratio is something that had been considered in the past. So all we're doing is proposing it. I respect what you're saying. I guess I would just respectfully disagree that we're coming up with some strange parking arrangement to make this work, because that's not the case.
So why don't we go ahead and focus on the text amendment? Neil, we can come back and address parking when we do the CUP. That's good for everyone. But before we, you were going to show us 2 different plans, is that right?
Yes, sir, if we may.
So if we could see those 2 different
Okay.
plans, that could help us all.
Okay, great. I'll ask Michael to come up. Let me move to those. I can go back to any of these, but in the interest of time. I don't know if Robert can hear me. We're just trying to advance the slide.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm attempting to help you.
Okay, we can come back to those. Or actually, this, Michael, I'll turn it over to you. Let's go back.
Okay, I know what's happening. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, try to change it with your remote.
Yes, okay. I can do it. Michael, if you want to do it.
Hey, how is everyone? This is the last meeting. I was online last time. So, what we heard was it was too big. So we've gone back in and really considered that. And what we thought would be helpful is to put some diagrams together to illustrate roughly how the volume of this thing might relate to other things we know here around the beach. And this first diagram is what we're calling a volume study. And the intent of it is to compare the barge restaurant that we're proposing to a house with approximately a 5,600 square foot footprint. Now, our footprint is about 2/3 of the size of that. But a typical house in Wrightsville Beach would have approximately a 5,600 square foot footprint. By the time you show that footprint within the setbacks of a typical Wrightsville Beach lot, and you raise it 40 feet to create the cubic volume, you end up with 224,000 square feet of cubic volume. The red lines that you see here represent the volume of the barge restaurant that we're proposing. And it's shorter than the typical lots out here, and it's much lower. And the actual volume is approximately 73,000 square feet, or 1/3 of the size of a typical residential volume. So the concern about the size of this being massive, I think, there's a house down the street that someone mentioned. This barge would easily fit inside that house, maybe by 2 times. Is how much smaller this is than a project like that. So we also heard about the height. We were showing much more of a 3-story height building, or not building, but restaurant barge. And it's important to understand that we are measuring this project. I'll go back here. Use this. Sorry. Trying to go. Not the direction I want to go. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So sticking with diagrams, what this diagram shows is the existing structure that's on the land. Keep in mind, we're building on water, and that water is going up and down with the tide. The average is we are going to be approximately 4.5 feet on average below the land. So we're already lower than any house built here on Wrightsville Beach. We are measuring a 2-story structure at approximately 28 feet off of the water line, 28 feet, 28.5 feet, I think is our actual number. And you can see that in an average tide between low and high, the roof structure actually aligns with the top floor of the structure behind. So if you were in that structure behind, you would be looking out right across the structure of our structure.
I was just gonna say, in the interest of time, if we got time to come back and get into more of the detail, but I know Chairman wanted to just talk a little bit more about the design alternatives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just want to make sure you understood, we're making this smaller, and these diagrams that you have in your book related to boats and surrounding buildings. So
that thing's sort of on a delay. Yeah, I don't. There you go. There we go.
So these are just some quick rendering studies that we did to also put the structure in the context with the new project that's getting ready to be built next to the bridge. You can see that we still have a very transparent type of structure. It's mostly glass with some solid walls. Should be very attractive on the inside, and
actually, the transparency, I think, even lends to it feeling a little bit smaller. It's not like most of the boats that are mostly solid fiberglass. We have probably more glass than solid mass. The restaurant is accessed off the barge. We will have the public restaurant down below with the more private club lounge on the second floor. This is the drawing that shows it without the proposed room above, which I'd call a meeting or banquet space, small dining, it's really a private dining room is one way that you could look at it. And this next drawing, I'll just.
Michael, while you're clicking, keep clicking, and I was gonna ask a question. So levels 1 and 2 are all enclosed. There's no exterior deck.
There is a little bit of deck on the second floor, right there.
Okay.
So approximately 16 feet of depth in that deck there. So
And
that's
then the third level is
third level.
all enclosed?
Well, if we did this is one version. I think we've actually changed our thoughts since this. This is still showing a little exterior drawing. But in fact, what we would like to do is just have the staircase come up through there and feed right into a room, approximately 400 square feet. And we're tucking that portion closer to the buildings to keep the view corridor from any higher building towards the bridge much clearer. And even coming back from the bridge, they can see the blue roof of the next door neighbor's restaurant. Any other questions?
Well, I have one for both you and Matt. So at this point, you've shown us all the changes you've made from last presentation. Is that
Correct. Those diagrams were a big part of it, was to really
Right.
explain volume.
Anybody else have questions?
I have a question. How is this going to be, and I don't know if it's relevant to ask this now or not, but how is this going to be taxed by the town of Wrightsville?
Hopefully heavily.
I mean, yeah.
I would assume it'd be a tax like a yacht. It would be, have an evaluation or a boat or any personal property.
How about the?
I mean, it's
alcohol
something to
sales
think
too?
about. It's something to think about. I don't know.
I don't know if that's us for planning boards.
Right.
But
I
it's a good
just-
question because
Yeah.
I'd certainly hope that we get the alcohol sales tax. But yeah, that's a great question, but I don't think that we. as an advisory
We're not going to
board-
solve that tonight. I know,
Yeah.
but I just put it in the back of your brain. Anyway.
Mr. Chairman, E.B. Hancock, our engineer, is here, and he would be the one that can speak to the mooring of the vessel, the safety, the design. He's here to answer questions if time permits, but he's experienced in this type of work and could give a 2-minute overview if time permits.
Neil and Ace, are you still there? No.
Yes, yeah, Neil's here. I
Okay.
have a question.
I'm here.
Okay, we just can't see you right now, so we just want to make sure you didn't get cut off again.
I do have a question.
Okay, fire away.
Yeah, so basically from the picture we're looking at, what I heard were a number of things that said, well, it could be this or it could be something else. So I would like to understand what it is at the end of the day we're going to be looking at as far as what we would take a vote on. So this has outdoor space on the second deck. Does it have outdoor space on the first deck? And what is the configuration upstairs? Is there food service on the second deck, the members only area, or is that just beverages? So yeah, that's the kind of the range of questions, is help me understand the relevance of this picture to what you're going to come up with.
Well, I'll answer about the top floor or the decks. The only deck between the first two levels is on the second level, on the lounge level, what we're calling the lounge level. The current drawing you're seeing here is a process drawing we did showing a way to push back and minimize the size of a potential third floor room. And I will say that it's work in progress. It was experimenting with the idea of doing some outdoor space, but we've since spoken amongst ourselves and decided that would just be an enclosed space, no outdoor space on the top level, which addresses concerns that we heard the last time we met with you. As far as food services go, that's not my thing. I'm not going to answer that one.
I'll have Sam come up and, Sam, you want to-
Yeah, sure. What we're thinking is that it would be, it's a lounge, there would of course be food service. We have not thought this through, we figured it'd be a nice restaurant on the first floor, it'd be open to the public, and then there would be a lounge of some sort on the second floor. We would assume we'd have lunch up there, or dinner. We haven't really gotten in the weeds with it, but we would think that would be it. We think it'd be nice to be able to have meetings on the third floor, just a cool view. It's not a necessity. If you thought it had a negative impact, we don't want to go to the mat over something like that, but we don't think that it really causes any real impacts, and it would be a nice feature.
But that would be used for the members only, the conference room.
I'm sure we would lease it to somebody if they wanted to have a meeting, or we don't know what we do with it.
Yeah.
We just figured we have meetings all the time, and if you wanted to have a little sales meeting on it down there, or I don't know what you do with it. Sit up there and have a cool view. I mean, it's.
Well, I think some of our concerns from the last meeting, and one of my concerns is, and I guess I want to hear a specific answer, on the second level, I know you said on the first level, there is no exterior space. It's all enclosed. The second level?
There's a porch. It's not really dining or anything like that. It's just a little porch on the end. You can open the doors on a pretty day. You could walk out and look at the boats.
Because our concern was trash blowing off and so
Right.
forth.
It is not the outdoor seating out there. It's just it's just by the lounge. You can walk out and look at the water.
And then the third level?
Enclosed, fully enclosed.
100% enclosed on third level.
100% enclosed.
So that picture of the outdoor seating, it looks like
Yeah.
that's not there anymore.
No, this has not been designed. These are just pictures that they drew for us to make them look nice. It's not what's being done. We would take the shell that if you guys thought it was a good idea, 400 square feet, put glass all the way around it, and that would be it.
And we could put that as a condition, that there'd be no open space on third floor. It'd be limited to a certain square footage. That's no problem.
Okay.
Well, my two biggest concerns has always been the size and the privacy, and both of those have been addressed for me personally, for what that's for. I mean, I went out there, I've been out there twice, Karen and I went out there once, walked it, looked at it from a distance compared to a boat, and there's a big difference now. I mean, there's a big difference.
Neil and Ace, any other questions?
I heard the word private dining and banquet facility earlier in the comments. I think it was applied to the third deck. Maybe it also applies to the membership area of the second deck. Would you please clarify?
There'd be no banquet space at this facility. There would be a proposed meeting room on the third floor only, completely interior, all glass. The second floor would have some sort of food service in the lounge. But the dining room is on the main floor and completely open to the public or anybody else.
And the density difference between the first deck and the second deck?
You get 66 seats on the first and about 75 on the second. Kitchen
So it's-
facility being on the first floor.
So it's more, that's the capacity, but is that, the square footage, the seating square footage is different between first and second, right? You have a slide with that. Can you put that up?
Is that because the kitchen's on the first floor?
Yeah.
Yes. Kitchen's on the first floor.
The floor plan?
Yeah.
Not sure.
Or if there's an issue, I can go to a particular slide for you.
You have a slide that shows the square footage capacity under
Oh, right.
under ceiling or whatever it was, the
You-
one that you've amended several times now.
Green.
That's the next page.
There we go.
Yeah.
And this chart, the original proposal is what you saw in, I think it was March, or the first meeting, then the revised proposal, and revised proposal 2 is tonight.
So this table does not include that third deck.
No.
Correct?
Correct.
That's correct. The third observation level is not on this. Again, the idea is if you all are generally okay with that, it would be to add that at roughly, we talked about 400 square feet, all enclosed. But we did not include that on this chart.
So I'm looking at, I'm trying to understand the square footage on the first deck and the second deck, I guess heated. So it's 3,000 down below and 2,700 up above. And the capacity, the seating capacity, what's the people capacity of those two rooms?
Well, the seating is, if you go down under seating, we've got 66 seats on the first level, 78 on the lounge level.
Okay, and that's simply due to the fact the kitchen facility is on the first.
Correct.
And I heard earlier in the presentation banquet, and now I've heard not banquet. So which is it?
That was-
No banquet.
Yeah, that's what Sam says, not me.
It's just an office on the third floor. I mean, a meeting room. It doesn't have food service there. It's just a room with a pretty view.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Are we ready to address the text amendment?
I think so.
Not hearing any objection.
That's stuff we wanted to hear the CUP and close and into the public, or do we continue?
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting. Is there anybody from the public out there, Robert?
No, no one is in the Zoom meeting and no one has made any comments on YouTube.
Okay, so we can close the public portion of the meeting. We haven't lost Nancy Faye. So do we want to move forward individually with the text amendment and then move forward with the CUP? Plan?
There's Mr. Bishop. Go for it.
Jim,
Yes,
thank you. I mean, I think it's prudent, I know we want to shave the time down and meet the mayor's address to be finished by 9 o'clock, but shouldn't we hear from EB in regards to the critical mass of this floating restaurant and how he intends to engineer it?
Yeah, if y'all would like to, definitely, yeah, he's here, so we can do it. And I definitely don't want to cut anything. I mean, this is very important. I don't want to cut anything off, but on the other hand, too, some of the folks in the room do have some drive time to consider too, to get home. So we just have to keep that in mind, but, yeah, pleasure to the board. Let's, hear from you, if you could, please. Thank you.
EB, let me just preface, highlight reel on how you're going to keep that thing from taking out the drawbridge.
Okay, so, first off, I know this is, we don't have any other floating buildings around here, but floating buildings aren't that uncommon. I actually have 2 projects right now on floating. One's in Baltimore Harbor and another one is in Southport of all places. When I was a contractor 15 years ago, I worked down on the Gulf Coast and none of their casinos were allowed to be on land. They were all on barges. My company built and rebuilt Beau Rivage and Biloxi after Katrina. And it was over a $500 million project, all on barges. So barges can be built safely. They can hold buildings. And again, we're not trying to do anything too crazy. I've had to do quite a few things a little bit more difficult than this down at the nuclear plant in Southport. But one of the first things that I'd like to do is we can establish what the design criteria is for this structure. I've heard something going around about maybe a 20-foot storm surge. We've already talked about extendable piles so that they're not necessarily tall all the time, but they'll extend 20 feet. So there's quite a few things we can do there. I've also been, and this is all conceptual right now, but another thing that we can do to kind of stiffen those piles up is have a framework sitting down on the bottom of the channel, holding all the piles together, so we don't have to worry about the piles turning over. But I mean, we're talking about something like 20-inch diameter, half-inch thick steel piles, drive them down into the Castle Hayne Formation. We tie all of those together, and then the extension part can be a heavy H pile. I mean, there's quite a few things that we can do to make sure that this is going to be safe. And on the case of the Beau Rivage, what they did as a kind of an extra step is I believe they even had a chain and anchor system. So even in Katrina, when it did come off of its foundation, it moved a few feet and set back down. But certainly there's plenty of ways that we can keep this from turning loose and going up and down the intercoastal.
Thank you, sir.
These will be piles that are driven?
Yes.
So how do you keep that from affecting the drawbridge when you drive piles?
Well,
as far as, I mean, I built a couple of towers in Tampa, Florida, and you have to monitor adjacent structures when you drive piles.
Yes, and I've done the vibration monitoring in the past, even monitoring masonry, multi-story masonry buildings downtown Wilmington that are already a foot out of plumb. What I've noticed is as soon as you get about 5 feet away, the vibrations really don't travel that well. They'll travel a little bit more in the Castle Hayne, but again, we're not talking about bedrock here. They're cemented shells. I don't know if you've ever held a sample of it in your hand, but it's just a bunch of seashells that have been pressed together very tightly. It's not like it moves vibrations like bedrock would. But certainly we can monitor it, and there's a threshold level, and that's something that I've done on several projects just to make sure you're not damaging any of the adjacent structures. But I think we'd find after a day or two that the bridge is far enough away from the site that it's really not going to affect anything.
Okay.
Chairman, would you mind stating your license and qualifications for the record?
Certainly. So I was skipped all of that, trying to keep it brief. But I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. My family did construction, so I got my first job in construction in 5th grade, worked in that through high school. I went to West Point, got a civil engineering degree. After West Point, I was in the Corps of Engineers. I was in charge of all the 82nd Airborne's construction for a while. That's Green Ramp, all the different barracks buildings that they're doing. After that, I got the same job at a place called Tazar in Hungary. It was an Air Force base where I was building a new base camp and also rebuilding Soviet-built buildings. After that, I was a contractor down in Pensacola Beach, Florida. I was a project manager for Beach Club, a 20-story concrete structure. I was on that from the 4th floor until we topped out and got our CO on that project. I've been here in the area for almost 13 years as a structural engineer. I was president of the North Carolina Structural Engineers Association for Wilmington and for the state for a little while. And I'm also on the ad hoc committee for the North Carolina Building Code Council to update the structural part of the building code for the next cycle.
So we can put that in the CUP that they have to use.
And I helped rewrite the North Carolina Chapter 36, the piers, wharfs, and masonry, marine structures section of the building code. And marine design is something I do a lot of. So some of the projects you may have seen that I helped design around here, Crystal Pier was one of them. Another one I did is just finish the Oak Island Pier at Pump Pier that just got rebuilt. I've done a lot of work down at the nuclear plant, put together a 20-year maintenance and upgrade plan for their canal. Let's see what else. I did a study for the city of Wilmington from bridge to bridge on all of their all their marine structures and all the upgrades needed, all the CAMA permitting for that, and the maintenance for about a 20-year period. So that's a few of the marine projects that I've done, quite a few.
Very impressive. Thank you.
Jim?
Yes,
Jim,
sir.
I just wanted to flag something. It certainly is triggered by the subject we just heard about. And that is the liability of the construction aspects, whether it's vibration driven or moving this thing into place. And then over its life, it's staying in place and not jeopardizing the bridge in any way. The issue I see is that if that bridge is damaged, it truly affects our town, certainly us as residents, but also for the businesses and et cetera. So I'm just kind of wondering that we should flag at least the liability aspect of what this project could mean also to the town on the downside, and how that liability would be covered by the yacht club, or anticipate that it could be covered by the yacht club, either through guarantees, insurances, or whatever it might be. I don't profess to know the solution, but it seems ginormous compared to the many other kinds of things that get built in and around the town.
Well, as an advisory board, I would think that we definitely need to put that comment in the comment section somewhere when it goes to the Board of Aldermen. And I would assume, shouldn't use the word assume, I would hope that we would make sure that the town attorney addresses that, because that would be a town attorney issue that then he would have to, work between the DOT and the town as to that liability issue.
I agree.
It's an excellent comment, and it's something we need to make the Board of Aldermen aware of, but I don't know that we can make that.
Yeah.
DUP.
Agreed.
But we definitely need to forward that comment on.
I do have another question, and I guess one of the changes was essentially it excludes CPATH, and I'm wondering what was the genesis of that and the rationale behind it.
I'll have to ask Matt to answer that question, please.
We tried to narrow the text amendment proposal even further by adding that the marina could only qualify if it was on the intercoastal waterway. It made sense to us too, there was questions about what would this apply to, and we were just trying to limit it down even more. And if another marina wanted to amend that later, then that would be for the board's consideration. But what we're proposing is that it would be limited to the intercoastal waterway. If someone else wanted to come along and have a proposal, then the board could consider that at that time and see if that's appropriate. But we know that we're on the intercoastal waterway. We think that's a benefit from the motoring public. And we thought it was a legitimate way to further narrow this.
It also, if I could jump in, see, the other location that would apply to has far different environmental conditions. It's open to the sound, and it kind of came out of the engineering for the mooring, that this would be site specific for our location, and it may not overlay adequately at CPAP because the conditions are so different.
Sam, could you be more specific about what conditions you're talking about?
Being open to the sound, and this is tucked in on the waterway, and much more protected.
It has nothing to do with what's down under the water? Different bedrock or different ground?
No, it's just, we're in a much more protected area, and we were just, the mooring of this was a big concern, and we wanted to make sure that everything was just, that all the conditions were isolated to this event.
Okay, then I would flag once more, the bridge is right there too, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Ace?
Yeah, I need to clarify, what height would be necessary for that third floor conference room?
Michael's gonna come up, Ace.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Basically, we'd like another 10 feet above the roof platform of the second floor. So that would take us up to 38 feet in that particular area. We could possibly do it in less, but in our mind, the trade-off is building a space that's approximately 15% of what the standard floor plate is on the 2 floors below. And using setbacks, like building that room inward from the edges of the roof as well. A lot like they build buildings in cities where they pyramid up, there's less volume the higher you go.
And 28 feet gets you the two levels as proposed?
I think it's 28.6 that we've proposed right now, off of the water line.
Above the water line, okay. Thank you.
Would anyone care to venture a recommendation, assuming there might be conditions or
Is
changes?
this for the text,
This is
right?
only for the text amendment.
Does the text amendment include the conference room?
Well, that would be whoever makes the motion, we would have to specify whether it does or not, because it is, right now, to clarify that, right now, with the 40 feet, the conference room's in there.
Yeah, because I was working with this, with Sam, am I allowed to say this? This is the time that says, I don't like the conference room stuff. And it still gets it back up to that third level. The rest of it, I don't have, which it doesn't matter with I don't have a problem with it. The conference room is throwing me off a little bit again.
Yeah, so it's it's any of the members' right to make a motion with or without the conference room, or other changes that you may want to make. And then we would address that and vote on that.
So the text amendment includes the parking situation?
Yes.
Yes.
Here, I'll make a comment about the parking, Neil, and it's just my own personal opinion. Any shopkeeper, any merchant on this beach, to me personally, that wants to risk their livelihood on pedestrian traffic without the amount of parking available. And that I'm on record for 10 years banging that drum. So parking, it's not something I'm really concerned with, but I respect your opinion and other members of the board. That is just, I own that coffee shop in downtown Wrightsville Beach, Cafe Del Mar, and we really had no parking, so that's the background I come from with the parking side of things.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with Ace. I mean, I think I told you, because I went down to look at Shark Bar one more time at lunchtime and decided to eat there, and there's absolutely no parking there right now because they're paving. I was surprised anybody made it in there, but they had 3 other tables and a few people sitting at the bar, and those people obviously walk there. So yeah, if you don't have enough parking, you're not going to make it. And if Sam's convinced that this is going to give them enough parking, I think, and more people are going to walk. One of the conditions I want to put in the CUP is we still haven't addressed bicycle racks. And I think we need to get a bunch of them down there, because every time we do one of these things, we forget to make them do bike racks. So
That should help with parking.
yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. It's a tough issue, but for us to survive on the beach, it's kind of like it's one of these things, concessions we've got to make.
Yeah, well, it's a, if it was voting on individual elements here, but it's not. It's voting on a conglomerated set of issues for the text amendment. And
I think the uses are a little bit mixed use, because I think there's going to be some people that need to park down there because they're going to get on their boat. There's some people that want to park there because they're going to go to the restaurant. There's some people that are going to get on park there because they're going to the private level. So it's somewhat a little bit mixed use, and hopefully the people that are on their boat are going to get off the boat and go to the restaurant. And and I think that's what the petitioner is looking at, is they think they can succeed with this level of parking.
Is there a place for like a bike, an iron bike rack? There is.
Yes, we store probably 40 bikes already. We do have plans already to add an additional, at least 1, if not 2 bikes.
And I'll have to say, like, going out there and walking around and looking at it, I don't really have an issue with the conference room, because it's tucked back far enough that it's not impeding any views or anything. And it's such a small percentage of the rest of if it's used as a conference room or a meeting place or.
Jim, if I may.
You may.
Yeah, Karen, I don't disagree with that comment. As the rendering shows, the trouble with the text amendment is it gives them full right to put a 40, go up 40 feet, and there's no square footage formula inserted in this. So I will take a leap of faith. I'll make a motion. We approve the text amendment as proposed, with editing item E to reduce the 40 feet to 28 feet. That gives, that's 28 feet measured above the water line. Sam mentioned at the original meeting that at a lunar tide, there's still about 2 feet to the top of the bulkhead. So that gives them some wiggle room. And moving on to the Board of Aldermen, if they have a different say on things, that's fine. But I would make a motion, approve it as written, with exception to item E. 40 feet is reduced to 28 feet.
28.6.
Maybe we could change it.
28.
Could we get that phrasing up on the screen? Because I'm no longer conversant with what it is it represents. I hear you what you're saying, Ace, as far as the 28 or 28.6, whatever that is, but it's not clear to me what the actual text amendment is.
It's basically it's in your package, just changing item E.
Can somebody give me a page?
Page 2 of the text amendment, very top of the page, item E. And
30 feet because when we start talking about 28 feet, 6 inches, I think you've got to go to, I think 28.6 is too tight because once they build this thing, it could be 1 inch or 2 off. So I think.
Okay, here you go. I'll amend that 28 feet above grade.
Hey, Bob, can you get page 2 up on the screen so Neil can see it?
Yes.
Thank you.
So is Ace saying?
I think he's saying that he won't get the third floor, and if they want it, they'll have to go back to the board of aldermen to get that. I think that's what he's saying. Ace, am I correct on that?
Yes, ma'am. I think that, 2 levels. And I would say 28 feet is measured above grade. I mean, that's fine if you want to do it above the water line, but if you do it 28 feet above grade, that gives them everything, that gives plenty of wiggle room.
Okay.
And
okay.
they're saying that's good. Can you amend that to say adjacent grade?
Yes, I don't know what the, Michael or EB can say, or Matt can tell you the proper term. Grade of the earth, the grade of the land, the adjacent grade, whatever, top of the bulkhead.
Top of bulkhead. Michael says top of bulkhead is good, if you're okay with that, Ace.
Yeah, that's satisfactory.
So what is that in real height from the expected water line? Is that an additional 3 feet, 4 feet? Is that 32 feet?
3 or 4 feet
3 or 4 feet.
above mean water.
Bob, can you zoom in so he can see that line item E? Thank you.
There you go.
Can you? Oh, you're the man. Can you see that now, Neil?
Yes, thank you. That's fine.
So he doesn't have this.
He just can't, I don't know, he probably doesn't. Anyway, so he can see it now.
No, I have the package, but it went into edit mode and I lost it, so.
Okay, so at the top there, and Ace, correct me if I'm wrong, Ace wants to amend this paragraph and say not to exceed 28 feet above top of bulkhead.
Which sounds like.
The water line the tide's always moving and the earth is static. So it seems like if you want to measure something, you pull the string from something that's static.
Yeah,
So you need to set a mean high water or?
Well,
I think what this is going to do, David, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ace, is this will eliminate the opportunity to do the 3rd level, but give them some flexibility in the 2 levels.
Oh, okay.
well, why can't we just stipulate a certain height above water line, which is essentially two stories? That makes it simple. This adds another kind of dramatic factor into it, which actually adds, I don't know, you said 32 or 36 feet? I mean, when you build a boat, you build it from the water relative to its water line, not to the dock it's going to go to.
I think we can do it either way. It's just up to, right now, it's really up to Ace. He made the motion, so we need to make the motion, and then we'll discuss it.
Okay, I thought we were discussing, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, we are, but, so what's the pleasure of the board? Which way do you want to go with it?
Well, I asked the question for clarity on what is the text amendment we're voting on, and so far, I'm looking at E. There's more to the actual text amendment, I suspect, than just E.
Yeah, and my motion, Neil, is to accept the text amendment as written section 155.7.28 Marina Restaurant, amending item E, that the height of a marina restaurant shall not exceed 28 feet above top of the bulkhead. That's the motion on the table. It doesn't have a second, and it certainly can be voted down and discussed. I have made no amendments to any other of the other items. That's
Okay, Leanne has just seconded it. However, now we still have opportunity to discuss before we vote. But Leanne has seconded it.
Quick comment, can Neil see, Neil, do you have the entire, he's saying he doesn't have the, because he's lost it, he doesn't have the whole text amendment.
So
He doesn't know
He
what.
needs page 1, 2, and 3.
Is that right, Neil?
Yes, that's correct. And sorry for being the lame duck here on that.
And then Bob, can you put those?
Yeah, you really need all 6 pages. Is that what you're after, Neil?
Yeah, it may be easier for me to look for it, but that's going to take me a moment to get back into the email and find the,
I just emailed it to you.
Thank you.
yeah.
So you lost it?
It seems like me on the computer.
All right, guys.
I can do it.
Well, he's trying to look at 2 things at a
I
time, trying to
know.
look at the meeting and look at the
Yeah.
text
I
message.
can. Doing better than I would be.
Well, yeah, my problem is in the email updating. I've hit sync, but it's got a life of its own. It's got too many different business apps and emails on here, email accounts, so.
We apologize. I didn't realize you didn't have all of this.
No, I did in fact have up the package, but somehow it went into edit mode and it lost it. Maybe I just bailed out too quickly on it. When was the original message? It was earlier in the week. Robert sent it. I realize we have a hard
Thursday.
Thursday.
You came late. He went Saturday. He came late over the weekend. Did you not get the one he just sent you?
It hasn't synced in yet, no.
Yeah, it probably takes some time, especially if somebody has a firewall. It'll take a little while.
Come on, Robert, where's your email? I know I have it.
We won't even go there.
Okay, okay.
He's got it?
I got to open it now, and I got to go to, what page is it on in the
Page
original
2.
full package? In the page 2 in the original full package? No. It's got to be,
Golly, they're not.
No, gosh, it's way in there.
yeah. Okay, I'm scrolling now. I'll find it.
If you go to agenda item C, it's the 3rd page after that. They're numbered at the bottom in the footer.
Yeah, but it's PDF.
Yeah.
Thanks
So
for bearing
agenda
with me.
item C, page 3, and
Okay,
then 3
yeah,
more.
I'm
pages.
almost there. I'm just getting through the end of the Sidewalk Cafe. Didn't realize there were many pages of Sidewalk Cafe.
She's not the only.
Okay,
Cereal.
I was gonna go by, go through and get me something.
I have frozen bubble burgers in my fridge.
No, that's okay. I can do that Thursday sandwich.
There you go. That's probably what I'll have.
I have no problem with, if they have no problem with the 28 feet above grade, I have no problem, or bulkhead, I have no problem with that.
I have no problem with the 3rd floor, but there's no way in the text amendment to go.
okay, I'm there. So where do I have to get to? It's after the statement of consistency, the planning staff?
That's correct. The next page is the petition ordinance text amendment, the application page, Exhibit A, and then very next page.
Proposed section 155.728.
Yeah, that's where it starts. That's items A, and then E is on the very next page.
Limit it to the setback and square foot.
And the square, he suggested a square footage. Yeah.
So not,
That's what I
that would
thought.
take us back up to 40 foot, but limit. But I think they want it back, so it's not just the amount of square footage, it's the square footage set back.
Bill, there's 5 parts to it.
That's why I said it's complex when one vote on many elements.
Is
If we pass that back in the next amendment.
ask Ace to draw his motion and make a new one with the setback and square footage condition.
So if he does that, that means the conference room is back on.
The what?
The conference room would be back on the
Correct.
table.
But we do a setback, but I need to make sure it's gonna be okay with that.
Well, I guess we need to hold.
Yeah, or is it worth even?
Well, you have a motion in a second.
Yeah, right, but.
Okay, I've read through it, so I'm ready to keep going.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and is there any further discussion?
I mean, Ace, would you have a problem if we wanted to make a different motion and allow it to go to the 40 feet, but give it a setback and take it back far enough to limit that size of the third floor and the square footage?
No, I don't have a problem. You certainly can. I probably wouldn't vote in favor of it, but it's at the board's pleasure. I'm just one person.
Right.
Yeah, I think at this point, with
That's
this
fine.
one's on the table,
All right,
we
let's go.
need to
Yep.
to vote on it.
All right, we'll just vote.
Okay, so any other further discussion? Okay, so we're gonna do a roll call vote again. We'll start with David.
David Culp, I vote aye.
Karen King, aye.
Leanne Joyner, aye.
Cheryl Cabana, aye.
Neil Briggy, no.
Thomas Coker, aye.
Jim Smith, yes. So that was. Robert, did you get that?
I did, thank you.
He did.
Okay. Okay, so we move on to the CUP. Oh, I need to go back and read it. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my agenda here.
I know the time is 8:22.
All right.
Time is 8:22.
Yeah, I wanted to read it officially. which I'm not finding. Where's it? Oh, agenda go.
I know, mine was hard to find.
Okay, the next item we're going to talk or discuss is the proposed conditional use permit. I'm still looking for, okay. I'm still looking for the number. Don't I have to read the number? I'm fumbling for my agenda. Here it is.
Agenda D.
Agenda item D, review and discuss a proposed conditional use permit to allow for the construction of a marina restaurant off-site. The marina restaurant will be floated in and permanently moored at the marina concrete docks and pilings. And I'm sorry, that is to amend section 155.9.1.5. No, I'm sorry, I went backwards, it's getting late. Forget that part. Okay, so amend agenda item D. Do we need any further information from Tony or the petitioner to move forward?
And I love that shirt.
So we're going to be, oh, Neil, now do you have this one available to read? He gave us a thumbs up, he got it.
I was muted, yes.
Neil, we can hear your TV in the background.
I can't even hear it. So, okay, I'll mute. I'll have to go chase somebody down.
What's wrong?
They can hear his TV. He's done with her.
Oh. What page is it? Conditional use permit.
It's, conditional use permit here, here's a section right here, 155.7.
Okay, there we go. Of course, it's on page 1.
We'll try to number those pages next time so it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, that would help sequentially always.
Yes, I'll do that.
So is there discussion, motion?
Jim, I thought I printed out the most recent version here. Has there been an amendment for the public lower level? I'm missing.
I didn't hear, understand his question.
Say again, Ace?
Trying to make sure I've got the most up-to-date CUP. What's the top of yours say? May 27th, 2020?
Yes, May 27, 2020. It starts out with the results of the May 5 board meeting. And then at the course, at the bottom of the page is the proposed conditional use permit.
Why does it still say and will not be open to the public?
Oh,
Just a mistake.
well,
Just
Oh, you mean-
bottom.
The bottom,
That's my fault.
Yeah, at the very bottom of the page.
We only just heard about that in tonight's meeting.
So in it, just take out none.
It's not a, okay, so let me back up before I get to that part. I do have a question about, because additionally the restaurant will be fully sprinklered. In the text amendment, the definition of marina restaurant is called for a water piping system. So will this facility be fully sprinklered?
yes.
It says at the last sentence that it will not be open to the public. Would the applicant like to state what they would like it to be written as if we go with a hybrid?
If I may, yes, sir. Again, I think we were working on this. It's been a work in progress. So the condition or the proposal we would ask would be the second floor would be the amenity component for the Wrightsville Yacht Club. The first floor would be fully open to the public.
okay, Matt, if you could stay up there,
Yes, sir.
the next paragraph on the next page, the second sentence, as the restaurant will be and of the Wrightsville Yacht Club, we need to restate that sentence. It doesn't.
Okay, we can either strike the sentence altogether, but we'll state clearly for the record that the first floor will be fully open to the public, and the second floor would be the amenity floor for the Wrightsville Yacht Club.
Okay, and then all pedestrian ingress and egress will occur through the Wrightsville Yacht Club's existing facility?
That's correct, and that's at both 4 and 6 Marina.
It'd be 2.5 rooms.
2.5, yes.
Did you say 2.5?
I think on the sheet, you'll see we've got a rendering of where the valet station would be, but basically it's going through that terminal services property. property, which is affiliated with the yacht club.
I'm sorry, is that a document that's in the package, or is that a document that was brought to the meeting?
No, sir, it's in the package. If you look at the conditional use permit, well, it was in our presentation, but it should be, it's shown on the site plan. Grab that.
I can go ahead and share that rendering for you if you like.
Okay. We've got, that's the rendering of the valet station, and on sheet SP1 of the two sheets, is designated as access point at the terminal services site here, which is corresponds with that rendering of the valet station. Now, of course, if you're at your boat, you would not you wouldn't come around. You would just walk through the existing boardwalk system. You can access it from the main area or from that other area. Yes.
He's showing you that.
Okay.
Is that the same? Like what you-
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's SP2. If we can see SP1, the first site plan. There we go. So this is hard to read, but that's access here. And then this is the what you call the main entrance to the yacht club. But that corresponds with that picture you saw with the valet station right here.
And that's number 4. Number 4 Marina.
That's two and a half. I think it'll have an address of 2.5.
I'm not seeing that document in this package. Maybe it was in a previous package at a previous meeting, but it's not in this package that I can see.
Well, I can tell you this, that has not changed from the last submittal. The parking's the same, the access points are the same. I think the date on the.
Okay, I'm just frustrated that I'm trying to find documents that aren't in the package. To the best of my knowledge, they're not in the package.
Yes, sir, I
So
understand.
I'm a little frustrated with that. So just to clarify the issue, the access is through the Wrightsville Yacht Club entrance and this entrance at the Storage LLC site.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Thank you.
Tim,
Yes.
may I ask if Sam comes up to the podium for a moment?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Sam. So now you're aware, we're in the setting conditions segment of the meeting. You've heard things like bicycle racks, and if you sat through the last meeting, it's hours of operation. So CUP doesn't really speak to hours of operation. What time do you want to shut down?
We were fine.
We've got recommendations.
The staff recommendations, Tony?
Yeah, we have staff recommendations. Those customers shall be seated in any outside dining at 10, and then those customers shall be served in the facility after 12 o'clock midnight is what we got, the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you for clarifying, Tony. Is that acceptable to you, Sam?
Yes, sir.
Tony, how does that compare to how Blue Water operates?
I'm not sure about Blue Water's CUP. They probably have one. It may not be exactly, but this is consistent with the other restaurants we've done in the past 5 years, probably or more. So pretty consistent.
So if Blue Water is different, wouldn't it make sense for it to be in alignment with that?
I just don't know what theirs is, what their time limits are, Neil. But I think we're consistent with Poe's, probably consistent with the Shark Bar, which we just did, and other businesses. I just don't know what the Blue Waters hours are.
I didn't think Sharks could serve at sea after 11. I thought- Did we talk
No.
about that? Maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Outside is different.
Yeah, outside's different. than
Oh, I know, but
inside.
what was inside for Sharks Bar?
They have an existing one that I read earlier. I don't have it
And
with
that-
me.
Blue Water may be the same way.
Blue Water may be different. I don't know what Blue Waters is.
It goes back.
It's been there since the 80s. and I'm not sure what the season
It's
is.
probably wide
But it's
open.
probably later,
Oh,
not
yeah.
earlier.
It wouldn't be earlier.
I
Okay.
wouldn't think it'd be.
Okay.
It wouldn't be.
They're open later.
Yeah, okay.
And a standard stipulation on when the glass bottles can be dumped in the garbage? The 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock?
Yeah, we're great.
We can add that to it, yes, sir.
What was that one we're gonna add?
Adding the dumping of the
Black
trash.
Bob.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's 25 minutes till anyone got to be home, got to drive through Wilmington. and-
I go to Pembroke County, I think I'm okay. I'm fine.
But you got to drive through.
Little
Wilmington.
I just go
Are
this
we-
way.
are you essential? What is it essential?
Or you got to,
Caretaker?
I've been arrested in one of these. before.
Have you really?
Mhm, Yes, back when the race
We'll
riots.
call
were here
Mayor
before.
Mills and tell him to get us out of jail.
Actually, that's
Okay.
exactly what he did.
Well, also on page 2, we need to clarify where it says the height is indicated to be below 30 feet. We need to make that consistent with what we addressed in the text amendment.
Okay.
Page 2, right under floating restaurants.
Yeah. So it's below 30 feet, but should we say 28 feet to this bulkhead?
I think we need to say it
Exactly. how-
exactly how it is.
Yeah.
We'll change that sentence before it goes to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And then you got bike racks in there?
I just added those.
I thought I saw that in there actually.
It
when I
says there was a
reading.
it was in the part that talked about what was addressed. It's under results of the May 5th meeting,
Yeah,
handicap parking, delivery, and guest drop-off areas of bicycle racks. So you did, yeah, with you.
I thought I read that.
Yeah.
We're showing at least one proposed bicycle rack on sheet 1.
Okay.
And what's the capacity of one bicycle rack?
We can add another one.
Yeah, let's do, if you can do it, let's add 2, is that good?
Neil wanted
More
to
the
know the
better.
capacity of the bicycle rack.
Oh, yeah, how many will it hold?
Well, just to find a number that seems reasonable. Jim, you seem to have more experience with the bike rack issue around the town.
Yeah, 2 of them.
I can tell you, we need one that's about 10 bikes full at the end of my street,
Yeah.
but we don't have one, so,
They're gonna commit to 12.
thank you. Jim, you had also mentioned landscaping in the parking area, I think at the very first session.
Yeah, that's again a two-edged sword. If they do landscaping in the parking area, they kind of lose parking spaces, but
Well, right now, it looks like a Walmart parking lot without the landscaping of Walmart, so, I mean, now's the time to put a stake in the ground.
There's no requirement for those. If you were to do that, you would reduce the parking by 25% or 30%. So
Yeah.
you would lose 20 places or more easily. if you
And
did
it's
that.
a commercial area of boats and everything.
Been that way
Yeah.
since I've known
I
it.
just don't think it would fit in with it's not like it's
it was my wish, Neil, but it's not practical. Plus, unfortunately, our landscaping around here, especially in commercial areas, gets beat up so bad. You put it in and they get hit by cars and driven over by cars, and then the weather and the storms, and they don't take care of it like residential places do.
I don't know, I've been led to believe from all the presentations 3 times now that this is a high-end operation, so I guess they would take care of them. I'm not trying to be mean or stupid here. I'm just saying, now, this is a time to take a stand on something that's important moving forward in our town.
If I may, Jim,
Yes.
eating.
It's not fair.
Rub it in, eh?
Not
Should be
fair,
there.
Ace.
I think he might be chewing gum.
I like this, just being a voyeur and watching. No, Sam, talk to us about the public, talk to us about the public part of the facility. And because we're about to make, at some point, we're going to make a motion, and that's going to be included because as it's written in our package, it's not included. So just give me your vision of how this public piece is going to work.
Public piece will be a nice restaurant on the water that will be open to the public. We would hope that it would be a reservation style system, that it's not going to be like our neighbor. That we can control it somewhat, that yes. It's just gonna be a nice restaurant. We don't want to do huge numbers. We don't want it to be, we're not looking to feed the state, just our people here. And that we wouldn't, people at the beach, people at the marina, people in Wilmington will be able to call in, make a reservation, and get in and out in a comfortable way. It's not any more past that.
Well, I mean, what I'm kind of driving at is how that first floor will be fully open to the public. Is that how we're going to word this, DUP?
Just a public restaurant.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that we're all on the same page. Okay.
This is really a separate, is the first floor that's open to the public, is it going to have a bar in it? Will there be a bar in there?
It won't be a bar.
Bar stools?
There will be a limited area, just like in the initial renderings. That's the way it's planned at this point. But we're not thinking it will be a lounge.
Yeah.
It won't be something that we're trying to keep open and keep open at night and be noisy and something we can't really control. Because again,
Well, I'm
we
just
wanna
thinking
be a
in terms
quiet
of
place.
everybody in there dining, will there be seating at a bar where you can dine and have a drink? Because some people like to sit at bars, some people like to sit at tables. Will there be a bar seating area where you eat dinner?
We're thinking this is going to be a nicer restaurant.
Okay,
Is our concept.
okay.
White tablecloths, china, silverware.
But where would one have a
Yeah, I'll be
wait?
washing dishes.
Where would one wait while they're waiting for their table and have a drink?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we just,
If it's a reservation only to the restaurant, more than likely you won't be waiting.
Yeah, but sometimes reservations, I mean, like Brent's, for example.
I thought the initial rendering that I saw had like a bar with
A bar.
seating.
I'm sure there'll be a bar.
Which is
I don't think it'll be a bar
kind of
setup.
nice, but I don't know.
I think we're about to make a huge decision here, and I really appreciate that this is a third try, and a fourth try could possibly, make a lot of sense. My point is this: I don't think things are all that well tied up and prepared here, and there's a lot of it could be's, and that's what's really kind of frustrating me, that we're voting on things that are not on paper until they came in the room tonight, and now we're dancing around kind of could be situations, and maybe there could be a third floor, but it doesn't really have a clear intent and impact. And that's what's frustrating me about where we stand right now on this pretty significant issue for our town.
I thought the motion was without the third floor.
It was.
Yeah, the motion's without a third floor right now, Neil.
Right, and the only thing we're saying that we don't know is that this is gonna be a restaurant. It's not going to be a bar. And we just want it to be a nice restaurant. There'll certainly be a place to sit and have a drink while you wait, but it won't be a place to
That's
go.
what I wanted to know, yeah.
Exactly.
But Neil, the motion right now is without the third floor, without the conference
Make a
room.
motion and vote on it, or this is the third time, so that's up to y'all. Whatever y'all want to do.
Okay, I'm going to ask what the pleasure of the board is because we are out of time. I'm afraid somebody's going to get in trouble trying to get home. I do hear, Neil, we've got a lot of issues that are kind of still open. But is there a motion to, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, approve the CUP with changes, do a deferral. I mean, I think quite honestly, we would not defer if it wasn't for this edict that we're under. We have to get home. And God forbid somebody got hurt going home. So what's the board's pleasure?
Motion, the original one we had, motion to, with the
the
third floor,
changes.
with the changes.
Well, that was the text amendment.
Right, I know, but then we were getting ready to,
But you were already making
yeah, we
changes
had
for the-
already, but we had, I thought we were at a point just a while ago, I second the motion.
I'll make a motion, Jim.
That was for the text.
Okay,
And before I do believe the applicant took some pretty direct comments to heart, which I was on record saying at the last meeting. You know, I do have some little heartburn over rezoning a very nice commercial piece, residential, knowing that this project was coming forward. The hybrid model of opening at least the lower level to the public seems to grease the skids a little bit for me. Reducing the height and the line of sight and the views, you know, and I'm comfortable letting this, you know, sending it with a favorable recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. Now, I do want to mention to my fellow board members that you do not have to vote yes, just like Neil did not vote yes on the last one. And that's okay, because we are voting on a big package of blanket material, and we can't piecemeal change everything. So with all that said, we got to get home. I'll make a motion that we forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Aldermen following edits. Oh. I'm just going to read the proposed conditional use permit for the record. The marina restaurant will occur off-site. Marina restaurant will be floated in and permanently and securely moored at the marina. Concrete docks and pilings. All plans will be approved, will be reviewed and approved by NCDOT bridge engineers. Then I'm going to jump down. Proposed floating restaurant. Second level will be an amenity for the Wrightsville Yacht Club members and their guests and will not be open to the public. First floor of the proposed floating restaurant will be fully open to the public. And all staff recommendations, the inclusion of a 12 capacity bike rack. I wasn't very eloquent, but that's my motion.
Can you add to it the dumping of the trash?
Oh, and yes, no, how does that read? No recycling dump between 8 PM and 8 AM.
I think we covered it all.
You know, David's the one that normally makes motions on this board, by the way.
I'll second it. Whatever you just said.
is there any further discussion?
Robert, did you get all that?
With the bridge.
Yes, sir. It's being recorded and streamed.
Oh, that's right.
I'm just gonna say.
David has comment.
Yeah, I have been against this floating, restaurant, anything floating. But the engineering that they're doing, this week I have contacted some of my friends that were engineers, and I've changed my mind a little bit on that. And you putting in the DOT people takes care of my bridge. You took care of so I just wanted to say that, because I was really against this, and I've kind of been changed somewhat. So I'm ready for a vote anytime you're ready.
Well, I will say I'm going to go to the Alderman meeting to see how this goes.
Me too, we gotta get here early though, before they limit how many people.
Oh, that's
can go
right.
in.
We'll have to tune in, but, so any other discussion before I call for the vote? Okay, we'll do a roll call again. David?
David Culp, aye.
Karen King, aye.
Leanne Joyner, aye.
Cheryl Kabala, aye.
Neil?
Neil Briggy, no.
Thomas Gerfer, aye.
Jim Smith, aye.
We got one more thing.
6-1.
Thank you all
Well,
very
I
much.
think we're
We'll
gonna
have to wait.
We want to continue
continue
the text amendment for the sales.
I didn't realize we had it.
We got to.
We need to adjourn the meeting vote.
Did y'all catch that? We're gonna defer the other items so we can get out of here. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you, ladies.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Body.